Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Adam and I were just singing this to each other, but just like
Just
hypothetical
softly in bed
things.
in a
just
romantic way.
hypothetical things in,
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
world.
Yeah.
A woman in the White House.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you imagine
President.
that?
No.
Hillary Clinton's emails. Can you imagine that? Hunter Biden's laptop. Can you imagine
Wow,
that?
topical. We're so topical
Yeah.
over here.
So
Oh my
topical.
God, we're on top
We're
of
also
it.
very right wing, apparently.
Oh, yeah. We really established that this is a
Oops.
very right-wing
I think
podcast here.
Yeah, the listeners know. We're number one
Yeah.
listened on Truth Social. We're the number one
Been
truth podcast.
all over the truth.
Now that Tucker Carlson is off Fox News, we have the number one ratings for anything ever.
For all of it. All
All
the
of it.
platforms,
Period.
everywhere.
Demos up.
Mhm. It's because no one had hit that right-wing musical theater audience before. That's the thing, is
Mhm.
we saw an underserved segment.
We joke, but it is very funny to me anytime I am reminded that Donald Trump will play Phantom of the Opera during like his rallies.
Because he's the
and shit.
Phantom.
Yes, but
Yeah,
also
he
because
identifies
he,
with that,
he
yeah.
just is that era of 80s New York.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's just
Yeah.
like, it speaks to him.
Interesting. I mean, musicals are very Americana. I'm sure that there are actually pretty right-wing people who love musicals. I always feel that musicals are inherently camp because I think I've said this before in the podcast, but it's a bunch of homosexuals singing about how great heterosexuality is. And I think that that
Yes.
is inherently
Camp.
very funny. It is camp. It is the peak of camp.
Mhm.
But the actual content doesn't really, challenge people all that much. So I'm sure that there are right wingers who like movie musicals, and feel free if you're listening to just turn this off. I'd rather not.
I'd actually
Or
like
write
to.
Or write in.
Let us know.
Marketplace of ideas. We'll hear you out.
We'll hear you out.
Yeah. It's
We're
good
real
to meet
Elon
in the
Musks
middle.
over here. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We're centrist. We're
Centrist.
real. We're
Centrism.
centrist millennials. Pete Buttigieg gays over here.
Oh, yeah.
We'll hear you out.
All right. Well, I believe we have a email.
We do, from our favorite listener, Martin.
Hi, Martin.
A bit.
It's so funny because we had our friend from college was also
Yeah.
named Martin.
Yeah.
So it just
Definitely
feels
not
like
the same Martin,
again.
but we're glad to have this Martin listening. Martin wrote in about Priscilla and specifically disagrees with our take about the character of Adam. So
Mm.
Martin said that he thinks that Adam comes across privileged and a toxic twink at everything and doesn't understand the seriousness of his situation. So he saw the encounter with the uncle in the bathtub as a big joke, and that the same thing is like Adam doesn't really understand that really bad things can happen, and that's why we need the like more seasoned Bernadette to come in and save him from the assault, is because like Adam genuinely doesn't understand what bad thing can happen when he dresses up in women's clothing and goes down to the bonfire. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I agree. Obviously, we said our piece on the podcast, but do you guys think that there's a possibility that Adam's character, like, genuinely, like, he doesn't understand? He's so privileged. He's never had anything really bad happen to him.
I could see that, but I think to me, it connect the decisions that he made feels more sometimes that it like aligns with someone who is trying to counteract all of the things that may have happened to them by going the, kind of like the opposite way to like have an outlet. Cause I mean, like, not in the same scale, but like for someone like let's say, me, I don't know, maybe if I was like, imagine like I was teased in when I was young or whatever, because of how girly I am. And I feel like my outlet was like doing musical theater in high school, where it's like, I'm going to do the thing that was kind of like targeted at me, but in like a full, 1,000%, that I feel like that kind of, I don't know. That's how I kind of like saw like Adam's like decisions and choices as more of like a result of like a hurt person doing something.
Hurt people.
I
don't have an opinion.
Okay.
That was ages ago that we watched that movie.
Yeah. You don't remember that movie at all at this point. Well,
No.
I think it's an interesting take, and, it's open to interpretation, right? That's how movies work. That's how art is.
Totally.
He also wrote in to say that we don't even understand how big the ABBA fan base is, and that the joke with the like, or
No
sorry,
more
not
fucking
sorry,
ABBA.
in Australia.
Oh,
I forgot that part of the sentence.
Oh.
That it's like rabid there, and that he felt like the like turd in
The
the
turd
glass
in the glass.
thing is like specifically
Something
like
that could have
making
happened.
fun of how big of a phenomenon with the gay community in Australia that ABBA is, that like that's the level at which they are. Martin also really liked Bernadette's deadpan in the final performance. You're not going to be able to convince me of this. I think Martin feels it was like a character choice, because earlier when they were first saying Bernadette was like, oh, well, I did this like years and years ago. And so like Martin saw it as like, oh, I'm so bored by this number. It's so done. It's so hack. But like, I feel like it was if that was the choice, it was too much. It was too much of the whole performance like that. It would have worked for me if it was like, and then here's the move that we saw earlier and Bernadette kind of rolls her eyes to do it. But like, if that was the choice, I didn't like it to the director of this movie. And lastly, and I will include this link in the show notes, he sent us a clip of Lay Girl from Aussie TV in the early 70s.
Oh, so it's like a real
It's
group.
a real thing. And he says that like to understand the character of Bob specifically, you have to understand that drag has been a little bit more mainstream in Australia for a longer period of time. So like this drag performance he would be on kind TV of like, in the 70s, a little bit less stigmatized. We obviously see still stigma in the movie, but it was more accessible maybe there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's cool. I'm trying to think like, what was ours? Because
what was our what?
Because I like in Philippine media, TV media, we always had kind of like gay or drag characters in like our variety show, like ensembles that there would always so there was always kind of like there's always a drag thing. But I'm trying to like growing up in America, was there any sort of kind of mainstream?
What was the mainstream drag when we were growing up?
I mean, it would have been RuPaul.
Yeah. Wow.
But even that, all RuPaul's things were pretty like
yeah.
Or she would like guest appear on a specific sitcom.
Yeah. Like the Brady Bunch movie is the one I think about, like her being the guidance counselor. Yeah.
But interesting. It's a little bit more like RuPaul's thing has always been a little bit also like a little bit elegant, a little bit sexy. I feel like in comparison to a lot of countries where it's like 100% comedic.
Yes.
Right. Because all I think of is like how England is like,
it's the classic form of
a dress comedy.
Yeah.
They cannot get enough of it.
Yeah. I guess listeners who are older than us write in with your memories of like in the 90s, what was the mainstream drag? Like what drag do you remember existing? If you remember that far back, even the 70s, since we're talking about 70s TV in Australia.
Yeah.
We'd love to know.
Yeah. It would, if anything, it would just be from like a sketch comedy thing. Like it would be something from like SNL.
Right.
SNL did do a lot of like, if you read
the church woman, what's her face?
Oh, Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey.
No, okay,
Dana Carvey's church lady. Yeah.
The church
Pat
lady.
is the like, I can't tell if you're a woman or a man. That was the joke of Pat. If you read Tina Fey's book, she talks about the fact that one thing that held women back in SNL was how funny they found it to put a man in a dress to be the girlfriend or the wife.
Yep.
And so it like took away the opportunities from the women in the cast. Yeah.
I feel like that comes up sometimes when we do our like, how would we bring this movie into the new casting? And then we'd be like, this would be a drag role. But then it's like, I don't want to take, the one woman's part.
Yeah.
The other mailbag we had was Gordon on YouTube commented on our Bedknobs and Broomsticks episode. Said that they watched the movie in theaters when it came out. Whoa. They had the soundtrack album and the coloring book.
Gordon is a diehard.
Now I need to know what the coloring book entailed. Did you get to color the sexy witch of the movie?
I hope they had a black and white outline frame of when she's walking down the train tracks.
Yeah.
Color your own fantasy.
Yeah.
Or they just had the like the hose, the stockings, just the walking stockings by themselves.
Fill in the stockings. Just super quick other mailbags. On our MAME episode, Chris Carpenter said, I have a lot to say about MAME, but we'll just leave it at this. The Rosalind Russell version is so much better. Also, Agnes in MAME is actually a combination of two characters in Anti-MAME, Agnes and Nora, who is an Irish housekeeper. That's why she doesn't make sense. And we responded, I can't believe our gay asses have never seen.
Wait, so then is Nora the character that the nephew falls in love with, maybe? Because wasn't that an Irish housemaid that he ends up with?
Technically, Nora
She's
is
just
the
like
character
thrown in there. Yeah. I don't remember what her name was in the movie we watched, but that idea of like an Irish housemaid, I feel like was in there.
Yeah, I think they took that idea and made it a new character of some kind.
Sinead, what's her name?
No, I don't know.
You're just coming up with Neve.
Neve.
Saoirse Ronan.
Neve. And then finally, on our Mamma Mia episode, Bryce said, hope Lin-Manuel Miranda sees this. And I'm trying to remember, I guess we said we could easily get Lin-Manuel on the show. When we recorded Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
Let me be clear. If we said that, we were joking. We do not think we can easily get Lin-Manuel right on the show.
I truly can't remember.
I like that RJ even brought up that comment to then be like, but I don't know what they're referencing.
But I know what they're referencing. But, you know, there is a little sprinkling of Lin in this movie. So that's why I brought that up. There's a little bit of Lin.
A heavy pour of Lin.
Pour of Lin.
He's in a lot of the film.
Yeah.
Whole milk Lin.
He is second build, in fact. Molly, this week, you have the challenge to summarize the 2018 classic Mary Poppins Returns.
Yeah.
Academy Award nominee, Golden Globe nominee.
Wow.
SAG nominee.
80% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, certified fresh even.
Interesting.
So you have the task to summarize the plot of this film in a minute or less.
I would like to, before you say start, I just want to challenge the listeners in listening to this to say, does any of this remind you of another movie you've ever seen? I think that's maybe the tone to have as we're listening to my summary.
As we dive into this conversation.
And your time starts now.
A grown-up Michael Banks is recovering from the grief of his wife's passing alongside his 3 children and with help from his sister Jane. Michael relies heavily on the children to complete daily tasks he cannot take on. He learns that he has missed payments on a home equity loan and his house will be repossessed in 5 days if the amount is not paid back in full. He can use his bank shares to repay, but cannot locate the documents. Mary Poppins arrives to help the family and takes the children on adventures underwater, into a broken china bowl, to an inverted room, and to learn Cockney rhyming slang from lamplighters, all of which help the children regain a sense of playfulness and process their mother's death. Michael eventually finds the bank shares taped to his youngest son's kite, and the lamplighters and Mary must turn back the clock hands on Big Ben so Michael can take it to the bank by midnight. After flying balloons as a family, Michael is able to feel joy once again, and so Mary Poppins slips away.
With 10 seconds to spare.
I got it tight.
It doesn't remind me of anything, I gotta be honest. I've never heard a plot like that in my life.
The specifics are so new. You know what I mean? What I love about this movie is new. Never been done.
Never been done. Never been kissed. Original. Unique. Stupid.
RJ, what is your relationship to Mary Poppins Returns?
Mary Poppins Returns. I mean, this movie came out in Thanksgiving, December 2018, correct?
December.
And at the time, Adam and I were deep in our Disney era. So we were Delulus, we were pixie dusted, you know, we were paying cheap rent to live right next to Disney World. And so we did a podcast at the time, the Dysfunctional Podcast, and we did an episode 92, released January 2019. We recorded and released an episode about Mary Poppins Returns.
What a different time, January of 2019.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's the thing. I think Adam has some.
I can't wait to talk about critics' reviews of this film.
Yeah. And at the time, I listened to it right before we recorded, just to kind of get myself reacquainted. Again, we sound so young, so firm, so happy, so firm.
Yeah, everything's tight.
Everything was nice. Yes. Everything was nice and pulled back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Soft skin. The overall take we had, we literally did not shut up about Emily Blunt. Like that was kind of like, it was a 23-minute conversation.
I have a feeling we'll probably have the same thoughts again.
And that's pretty much it. You had a terrible cough. And this was back when, we weren't professional.
We weren't editors.
And so I had to kind of be like, please pardon Adam's coughs.
I think this is pre us having 2 mics too.
Yeah, we were sharing one mic because you could hear like pouring water, moving around the room.
Good.
So that was kind of like
really you took a chance with that whole walking podcast thing before it was,
I know.
Before it was cool.
People were like, wow, I could get a really good sense of the apartment because I'm hearing.
Yeah. Always in motion the whole episode.
We were doing spatial audio.
Spatial podcast. That's going to be the new thing.
That's going to be the new thing. It feels like they are in your room.
Yeah.
And then honestly,
when your friends visit you, they just pace your room the entire time they talk to you too. I wouldn't know because I don't have any friends, famously, but
I was brought up by my nephew. And then honestly, I don't think I've really thought about the movie like since then and like since now. Nothing's like come up since. There's I'm sure we'll talk about the trends of the new Disney live action movies / remakes that ilk.
Well, Molly will have nothing to say about them. She doesn't know.
And like it's kind of like lasting power like after the hype of its marketing window, basically. Like, do people continue to talk about these movies? And I would say for this one,
no,
I really don't think so. I swear, I feel like after the awards circuit, after, Emily got her nominations, it just, was a thing. And then we moved on to the next one.
Because she won, I think she won the SAG, but I think it was for A Quiet
Place as supporting. That was the same year she was nominated for leading as Mary Poppins.
Mary, yeah. Molly?
I've never seen it before.
Okay.
And famously never seen any of the Disney remakes. I was aware that it happened.
Yeah.
I like Emily Blunt.
Great.
That's it.
Good.
Did you have a definitive? Do you have a definitive Emily Blunt performance?
Yeah, Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah,
it's Victoria.
Yeah.
Oh, Adam watched Young Victoria.
Yeah,
that's yours.
I did. I watched that too. I really liked it, but I feel like
together. In fact,
we probably did.
Oh,
we watched it.
you did.
Yeah. But I feel like in terms of what she can do with comedy, Devil Wears Prada is the one.
Yeah, I agree. I think my personal favorite, I really loved her in Into the Woods. Like, I just genuinely liked her, but I think like the definitive Emily Blunt is definitely Devil Wears Prada.
I've never seen Into the Woods either.
Rob Marshall.
I love the musical so much. I just feel like it can only disappoint me.
Yeah.
Yep.
James Corden.
Yeah.
So
Adam, what's your relationship?
We saw this in theaters with my mother. She was in town visiting.
Hi, Nan.
In 2019. And when I say in town, I obviously mean Florida. She had already seen this. I'm going to come out on this podcast. I'm going to say she had already seen it. And then I had waited to see it until she was in town. Because I think it was like the week later or something like that. And she was like, oh, I've already seen it. And I was like, okay, well, we're seeing it again.
Betrayed by your own mother.
She had to like sit through it a second time, which I'm sure she wasn't thrilled about. I remember being fine with this movie, but even at the time I was like, it is Mary Poppins again. Like it's beat for beat the same film. Which we've talked about this, I think, on this pod, where it's like, what do you do with a sequel? Do you do the same beats, or do you do like a new, like This Is Direct 2, where it's like a full new story that has nothing honestly to do with the first one, or like there's different ways you can
there's different ways to get into it, of
a sequel. But
can you think of an example of a sequel that was beat for beat the same but was a big success?
Finding Dory.
Didn't ever see that either.
I guess
maybe more so kids movies.
It might not be beat for beat. But
I wouldn't say it's beat.
Hocus Pocus 2. Disenchant. Honestly, all of the Disney sequels are very derivative of the first one. They are very afraid to take a risk.
And they're successful financially because it's Disney.
Correct.
I guess I mean like an artistic success.
Yeah.
No, I can't think of any artistically successful sequels in general.
Besides Godfather 2.
But like Godfather 2. Yeah. Let me think about, hold on.
To My Star 2.
I feel like
people like Rush Hour 2, right?
Sure.
I've never seen this movie.
I'm sure the Fast and Furious sequels are better than the original.
I don't know. People are saying any of those have artistic merit, however.
Oh, The Dark Knight. That's more like in a series. I think it was a planned trilogy, right?
Yes.
Maybe not.
Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight.
No, Batman Begins.
Dark Knight Rises. Toy Story 2. That is genuinely good.
Yes.
Toy Story 2.
But very much not a neither of these are beat for beat remakes.
No. Toy Story has always done a different thing with each film.
Yeah. Technically Mad Max Fury Road, which I love that movie.
Again,
though, it's like, that's like, very much a different story.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It feels like current era Disney. The secret to the success.
Well, it's just, honestly, it's the idea
harken back really strongly.
What way am I parting my hair? There we go. It feels like a movie that somebody was given the task to write a screenplay of a sequel to Mary Poppins, instead of being like, my passion is to expand the world of Mary Poppins. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But On the other hand, I do want to say this. I am not, when we get into the facts and figures about the film, I am not going all the way back to Mary Poppins because we've already done a Mary Poppins episode on this channel. So you can go back and listen to my discussion of like P.L. Travers and that whole situation. But children's books, especially children's books like this one, where it's like, they're a series of books. They're all episodic little stories.
Yes, they're just little stories of Cherry Tree Lane and the family.
I mean, those books in general are very like derivative of each other. It's always like the family, she comes in, they go do things, and then she leaves at the end of the book. It is.
Yeah. Do you know what would have been fun? Sorry to we're like really jumping ahead, I feel like, but it would have been cool to have a movie that was like 3 little stories based on some short stories that are like less of like, we're making a whole new Mary Poppins and more like, here's like a continuation with like little things that Mary Poppins did of just taking some of those. I feel like I would have liked that better.
Like Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
So, because Winnie the Pooh is very famously like, it's broken up by these little interstitials of him like walking through the book to different parts of the book to get to different stories.
That would have been cool. And then you could make it like much more aesthetically different too.
Yeah.
I did
give it to 3 different directors and then let them all
that would
have
be
like
so fun.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of like the children grown up, Mary comes back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just thought that then they didn't make the rest of the movie different enough. It would have been cool if they had explored more of like a different time period and like, like they could have done more with it for sure. So.
Okay, well, this movie was directed by Rob Marshall. I believe this is his 5th film on this podcast that we have talked about now, which is wild. The screenplay is by David McGee, story by David McGee, Rob Marshall, and John DeLuca. It's based on Mary Poppins, the book series by P.L. Travers. It's produced by Rob Marshall, John DeLuca, Mark Platt.
Our fave.
Also, we've talked about him a lot.
Yeah.
It stars Emily Blunt as Mary Poppins, Lin-Manuel Miranda as the street lamplighter named Jack, Ben Whishaw as Michael Banks, Emily Mortimer as Jane Banks, Julie Walters as the cook Ellen, Colin Firth as William Weatherall Wilkins, the president and CEO, boss and CEO of the Federal Fiduciary Bank, and Meryl Streep plays Cousin Topsy, a woman of indeterminate Eastern European origin. Cinematography is by Dion Beebe. I also think that name has come up before too, actually.
I think so, yeah.
It's edited by Wyatt Smith. The music is by Mark Shaman, who famously did Hairspray. Production company is Walt Disney Pictures, Lucamar Productions, and Mark Platt Productions. It's distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It was released wide December 19th, 2018. So that kind of like Christmassy weekend moment. Its running time is 131 minutes. Its budget is 130 million. So if you really want to think about every minute of the movie, cost $1 million.
Wow.
And it made $349.5 million. So it was a hit.
It was a hit.
A success. A sequel to Mary Poppins had been pitched multiple times throughout the years. At first, P.L. Travers was always against it because she hated the first one. She actually wrote Mary Poppins books all the way from the 30s to the 80s. I think she wrote 7 books in total. So toward the end of her career, she had written a treatment for a sequel for Walt Disney Studios. But at that time, Julie Andrews had actually taken a step back from filmmaking. I'm not sure if this is when she was going to do Victor Victoria on Broadway. And so that's why she was like, I wouldn't want to do this now. It's funny that, I mean, that would be 20 years later in the 80s, 20 years later. And she would still be Mary Poppins. That's just interesting to me.
Well, this movie, they make a joke about her not aging. So you're supposed to understand it's like the same character, but that she's magical. Right. I don't feel like that wasn't like canonically part of Mary Poppins necessarily. Because something I couldn't help but think about was, what if this movie had Julie Andrews in it? And obviously she would be like significantly older now, but it would be interesting. Yeah.
Whenever I think of Julie Andrews and Mary Poppins, I think of the time someone that we went to college with once told Adam to his face.
Oh my God. I don't remember this. So am I gonna be flashback to trauma?
That they had never seen Mary Poppins. And then when Adam asked why, they said, because if I think of the like Julie Andrews movies, I would think about one of the movies, like one of her good performances.
Yeah, someone did say that to me once.
That's unhinged.
It actually felt like they were trolling me. I will say. Now I have the verbiage for it. We didn't have the verbiage for it in 2011, but at the time I was like,
you're being real life trolled. I know Mary Poppins stan, but like that's an insane thing to say. Can you tell me who it is? Can we mute the mics for a second?
Who was it?
I guess
I'll
we
put it
can't
on the
mute
chat.
mics.
Who was
Put
it?
it in the
Just
chat.
say it. Just say it. I'm going to edit it out.
It was at like.
I do remember this.
You gotta keep it in just as a bleep and then my
Just
reaction to
believe
it. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, and you would think it was like that person is like was very big into musical theater, so that's why I'm like,
Yeah.
how?
Listen,
Wow.
hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. The only explanation.
Oh no. Yeah.
Anyway, just a reminder to everybody that Julie Andrews did win Best Actress Oscar for
Yes.
her role in Mary Poppins.
that is her.
which
that
was
is-
her first film she ever made. Okay.
So just think about that.
So blah blah blah. Okay, a pitch was offered to the creative team of Into the Woods. Because Rob Marshall had just finished Into the Woods in 2014. So in 2015, they came in for a meeting. They were offered the pitch to do the sequel to Mary Poppins. And then they immediately went into pre-production, basically.
Okay.
They signed on, like, immediately. Let's talk about casting. And here's what I'm going to preface this by saying. IMDb might not always be accurate. I'll be the first one to say it. Sometimes I talk about, casting stuff. And I think to myself as I'm taking notes, I go, I don't know. Sometimes these are just names that I think people just wrote down for fun.
Yeah.
But like
How are
most
they
of the time, it
sourced?
seems like,
And then like some intern
plausible.
saw that piece of paper and
Right.
they're like, oh,
but
wow.
sometimes, most of the time, the casting, like who could have been, always seems like plausible to some degree.
Yeah, because you could like say like who was popular at the time or
Right.
like who.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to read you a list of people for the 5 major characters of this film,
Yeah.
and you tell me if any of this seems, I don't know, unhinged.
Okay.
Mary could have been Scarlett Johansson, Caitlin Olsen. I actually don't know who Caitlin Olsen is.
Is that from It's Always Sunny?
Oh, yes.
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or Kristen Bell. Not
Okay.
totally out of left field. ScarJo is probably the most out of left field.
Yeah.
I would say Caitlin Olsen is the most out of left field, unless she has a singing career that I'm not familiar with.
Kristen Bell
Caitlin
feels
Olsen
like
would be-
right
Kristen
in
Bell
the.
feels very safe.
That feels very,
that's a
yeah.
safe.
This is post Frozen.
Yes. So
Yeah.
they're like, we know she's white. She's ready to go.
We know
Okay.
she's white. Is that what you said?
We know she's white.
She's white. We know she's like she's
Well,
ready to go.
think about race.
Okay.
Oh,
That's all I'm saying. These are established characters. Anyway, okay. Jack. Okay, this is not an established character. Jack, the new character. Here's who it could have been. Allegedly. Ashton Kutcher. Will Ferrell. Sean
Oh.
Hayes. Keegan-Michael Key. Russell Brand. James Corden. Jim Carrey. Zac Efron. Daniel Radcliffe. Matt Lucas. Eddie Izzard, who now goes by Susie. And David Tennant.
Just wildly different vibes.
There is no through line to that list of people that I
that
just
tells
read.
me they did not know what they wanted to do with the character Jack.
oh no.
that tells me.
And that's Jack. This is Michael Banks. The kid from the first movie, now an adult.
Mhm.
Steve Carell. Joel McHale. Jason Lee. Robert Downey Jr. Andy Samberg or Bill Hader. What is this movie?
Yeah. Also,
Also, where are the British
I was
people?
going to say, any of those people British? I don't know who Jason Lee is. I don't think.
I don't know Jason Lee.
Okay, so maybe he is, but the rest of them are certainly not.
Certainly not British. Jane. Okay,
Yeah.
this one is the one where I think it's like this actually is just like an AI made this list of people.
Okay.
Jane could have been Amanda Seyfried, Gina Rodriguez. Okay, Jenny Slate, Aquafina, Bryce Dallas Howard, Karen Gillan. I think the first British person on this list, and Anna Kendrick.
Wow.
Mm.
I don't know how Aquafina would have read
on the
as
list.
Jane Banks. But I would have liked to see her try.
I honestly,
I mean-
I would have loved to see that. Give me that screen test. I do
Yeah.
want to see that screen test.
I'm
Release the tape.
Release the tapes.
I mean, we could have done a colorblind Mary Poppins. That's
Yeah,
fine. You definitely would have to
sure.
have made some of the other characters also people of color. That would have been the
Yeah.
wild thing. Would be have all white British
Everyone is-
actors and then
And
Aquafina.
Gina Rodriguez as Jane Banks.
But also like what Aquafina's like a comedian. Like, why would she be on
Famously
this with, like,
slapstick
Amanda
character
Seyfried,
Jane
Bryce Dallas
Banks.
Howard? You know, like
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard feels the most like that's the direction they could have gone in based on what the character ends up being.
Well, we've seen.
Yeah.
Karen, I think too.
Amanda Seyfried
Well,
would
Karen
also
Gillan
be.
should have been it just,
Yeah.
just for the fact that she's British.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, William, the villain of the film,
Mhm.
Robert De Niro. Danny DeVito,
Mm.
Jack Black, Alec Baldwin, Jeffrey Tambor, Steve Buscemi, Chris Pratt, Louis C.K.
Nope.
Patton Oswalt.
I was gonna say I could actually see any of these people, but if Louis C.K. was in this, we would have not been able to watch it.
I don't even understand why they would have made a movie in which apparently they were potentially thinking that no one should be British making this film.
I kind of love that. I think that
Since
would have
we
been a
know
real
that Dick
fresh
Van
take.
Dyke got so much like flack for his fucking
They were like, let's lean in. That's what people
Everyone has a
remember
bad
about the
accent.
movie.
Yeah.
That's why.
One of the things most people know about it is that Dick Van Dyke's accent was rough, and they just want to really lean into that.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I would
God.
love a Mary Poppins where 0 of the actors were British and they were all trying to do accents. Also, Danny DeVito would slap as the villain of this movie. I would like to see that.
But then going from that list to who ends up in the film.
Yeah,
Okay.
very like standard variety British
Yeah.
actors.
Right. I just think like none of those Williams feel like what Colin Firth gives, in my opinion. Mary is probably
Yeah.
the closest. Like those 3 actresses could feel like a version of
What Emily did.
Emily Blunt to some degree.
I still think Caitlin Olsen would be a weird.
Someone
weird
must have been
deviation.
watching
I've only
like
seen
Always
her do
Sunny
Always Sunny. So
during
yes.
like
So, somebody in pre-production was like, "I love Always Sunny is my favorite TV show,
Yeah.
and I want to give this girl a shot."
I just think her acting is like a lot broader than what Mary Poppins is delivering.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
just feel like it would be a very different energy. I think she's very funny and maybe she could do it and be amazing. But I would be surprised if all of a sudden she was Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I don't understand this, Michael. Like going from this list of Steve Carell, Joel McHale, Jason Lee, Robert Downey Jr., Adam Sandberg, Bill Hader to Ben Whishaw
Yeah.
is a wild left turn. This is why I don't know if this is true. This all feels
Right.
wild to me.
Yeah.
So just for fun, we talked about it.
Yeah.
So in this movie, at the end, Angela Lansbury plays the balloon lady.
Mhm.
We do know that a cameo role was offered to Julie Andrews, and she did turn it down out of respect for Emily, saying like, "This is really Emily's time to shine. I don't want to take that away from her. I don't want to distract from her performance." And so most people do assume that it was going to be Angela Lansbury's role. Would have been
The
the one.
reveal of Angela Lansbury feels very like it should be somebody
This
who was
would
in the
have been-
first movie.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
It's a little weird to be like, hey, Angela Lansbury, she's kind of like Julie Andrews, is what that moment feels like.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's very sweet. And then she did, I guess, after the casting was officially announced, like there was something where somebody asked Julie Andrews, like, what do you think of this casting of Emily Blunt? And she was like, she's a wonderful actress and I'm very excited for her to do this role. I'm sure she'll be great. And like Emily Blunt said she like cried after she read it, which is very
Aw, that's
sweet. So this is the longest span between an original film and its sequel at 54 years.
Yeah.
In Hollywood's
Wow.
history. The previous record holder was Return to Oz in the 80s from Wizard of Oz in 1939. And one final cameo is Karen Dotrice, who plays Jane Banks in the original film. She plays a woman who walks down the street and asks where 19 Cherry Tree Lane is. And they tell her it's 2 doors down. And she says, "Many thanks sincerely," which is one of her lines from the song in which they sing the like advertisement for the.
For the nanny.
One,
For the
a
nanny.
perfect nanny.
Yeah.
So that's it. Now, Academy Awards. This was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. It did not win any of them, but it was nominated for Best Costume Design for Sandy Powell, Best Original Score, Mark Shaman, Best Original Song of The Place Where Lost Things Go, which again, at the Oscars, they always sing the songs. It was originally offered to Julie Andrews to sing, and she declined. And then
Oh.
they had Bette Midler sing it instead at the Oscars.
Okay. Now,
And
all
Best
of the
Production
music-
Design.
All of the music is original, right? So they could have nominated any of the songs.
Yes, but why would you?
Well, you think The Place Where Lost Things Go is the best song in this movie?
I think it's the song that seems the most Oscar-y kind of like bait. The easiest
Okay.
one for them to get a nomination with. Mhm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
The Oscars
Um,
suck.
Yeah, the Oscars like best original song category is very weird because it's a bunch of like people who don't have anything to do with music deciding like a song.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a very weird category, but it's a chance for them to get singers to perform
Gaga.
on stage, and people tune in for that reason. So
Adele
they will
Dazeem.
never get rid
If
of that
original
category.
song never happened, we never would have gotten Adele Dazeem.
But see, to this
It's true.
point, I feel like if one of your goals with the best original song is to like make an entertaining show that people will watch, don't pick a bunch of sappy ballads.
True.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if Oscar voters and the Oscars committee, like the people who run the
Plan
Oscars,
the show,
always have
yeah.
the same intent of what they want the Oscars to be.
Yeah.
Which I think therein lies the problem of
Yeah.
the Oscars. Okay, the week this opened, this was number 2 at the box office. In number 5, we had The Mule, which was Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood. He had a threesome in that movie. That's the only thing anyone knows about it.
Did
Yeah.
he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In
Wow.
the movie out of it. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's had one in real life, but you're reacting like I'm telling you something about his personal life.
Just one of Clint Eastwood's many, like, the white man are persecuted films.
Mhm.
So
The
as
white,
of the last,
the
like,
white
15
men are
years.
persecuted because of activities of brown people, around them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 4 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That's a very popular movie. People really love that movie.
Huge,
Yeah.
great movie.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie. Number 3 was Bumblebee, an extension of the
Oh.
Transformers franchise.
Yeah.
The Transformers
Number 2,
universe.
as I said, was Mary Poppins Returns. And number 1 at the box office the week that this opened, also opened the same weekend, was Aquaman.
Yes, the Nicole
Starring
Kidman
Nicole
vehicle.
Kidman.
Absolutely.
Great. Let us move on.
I was just gonna say I love doing more
sorry.
contemporary movies because I actually know what all the movies that are
Yes.
that are in the other places are. Unlike the ones in the 80s where we're like, nope, no idea. Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, like that one racist movie about the. Do you remember the British racist movie? It was like they were like a Chinese.
Oh, it was.
I can't even remember.
I don't even remember what movie it was, but yes,
I think it was with Xan. Was it Xanadu? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
Oh, I have some memory now. Okay. Yeah.
It was like the mysterious exploits of Mr. Fu Manchu.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Oof.
Amazing.
That was the mule of their time.
That was the mule. We never stopped making them. We just let Clint Eastwood make them is really what changed. Well, I'm going to start because as the resident expert of Mary Poppins,
Who brings it up every time? It is your
I
it
have
is your
brought it-
control, you could say, in data. In every movie we watch.
It's true. It's actually funny that we started the podcast way back in blah, blah, blah.
With
And
Sound of
it,
Music.
and it was Sound of Music. And I probably now, if we started it again, I would probably do Mary Poppins instead.
Mm.
Maybe not. Maybe I don't actually think that, but I bring it up more than I bring up Sound of Music.
True.
This movie is, I have to think about this movie. I have to analyze this movie in 2 ways.
Yeah.
One is it a good movie musical? That is the what we are here to do. That is the thesis statement of this podcast. So on one hand, does this work? And I would say overall, generally, sure. Why not? It's not offensive. It's not bad. It moves along. The songs are fine. It's competently made. Sure. Does this work as a sequel? And again, like, I guess the answer is yeah. I mean, it ties up, it connects to the first one. It has references. It has little Easter eggs that you like to see if you're like a fan of the first piece of media. But is any of it exciting? Not really. And I think that's like the bummer is like, especially as a person who loves Mary Poppins. I think have I said that before in the pod? I really like
I think
Mary
you've
Poppins.
mentioned
You don't talk
it.
about it very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe
turns out I
pass.
do. It's like Mary Poppins at the time was like, in a similar way to how we talked about with Bedknobs and Broomsticks, like it was very like visual effects forward, special effects forward. Like it was like trying to do a bunch of magical tricks through movie magic. And like, that was one of its like charms. And it's like really, it's like a good script. It's like got good design. It has a good cast. I mean, it's like overall, most people really do say like it is. There is a reason that it is a classic.
Mhm.
The songs slap. You actually remember the songs. as soon as the movie's over. They don't just leave your head immediately. So, the problem is like, if I was not comparing it to Mary Poppins, if this was like a sequel to Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I would be like, this is better than Bedknobs and Broomsticks. This is like, seems more like fun
Grounded,
and lively and like really moves along and blah, blah, blah. But because it's already up against something that is so beloved, and we've actually talked about this, I don't know if we talked about it on Depod, but we talked about it on like the group chat podcast, how like the Disney company has this problem where they keep making the remakes of the things that are like their most popular pieces of media because they know it's like a guaranteed, because it's so beloved, people are going to want to see it.
People want their kids just to experience it in a new way.
But also like those are typically the ones that are like the best created at the time. Like The Lion King is a classic because it is almost like a perfect film. Like there's not really any changes you can make to The Lion King to amp it up. So then when you remake it, you're just kind of beat for beat remaking the movie. So this has like the same problem that the remakes have. And it's almost like why I don't even know if this should be considered a sequel so much as it is like a remake of the same characters and ideas. I don't know. It is good. I do not want to come away from this and be like, this is a bad movie, because it's objectively not a bad movie. There's no way you can watch this and be like, well, that sucked. But does it give you any like kind of magical feeling as you're like watching it? In parts, I guess. Like I do think like when they go into the China Bowl, like that is the most like nostalgic, like, wow, I am really watching a Disney movie. They actually made like 2D animation for the sequence. They rehired like 70, 80, 90-year-old animators to like animate this sequence for 16 months. Like it was very important to specifically to Rob Marshall to do that. And he advocated a lot for it. So like, I can tell that there's a lot of love for the original property in this film, which I do respect in that regard. But I also think my overall takeaway is that I don't know if they really understand the thing that makes Mary Poppins like such a classic piece of filmmaking in general. Like I think they think it is like a lot of the showy stuff. And while some parts of it is, I think overall it's that like the core story underneath is like a really good story of like family dynamics. And I don't think this movie has that, which is I think where it falls really flat for me, besides the fact that the music is bad.
Well, I think they did try. I like the idea of this is going to be a story about coming out of grief. I like that that's a different core story, right? Because the first story is very much about the father learning how to be a father and seeing joy in childhood and that sort of thing. And this is more so about a father who we assume had those things and has to relearn it because he went through grief. And I think that that's cool and different. So I don't think that they totally disregarded it. I just think that I don't even know that I can tell you what it is, but something about the execution. I don't know if it's primarily that then the beat for beat in the middle feels so similar that you kind of lose that part of it or what. I mean, there were two moments where I was like, I think it's really losing me, or like I'm seeing a flaw in like the core idea of doing this as a remake. The first is that we know immediately that Mary Poppins is magic. And because there's no way to like make that a reveal, right? And like, maybe I'm wrong about the first movie, but I feel like part of it is that the children are seeing little hints, and it like takes time to build up to be like, she genuinely is magic. Like this is not just some one-off thing that I saw that I couldn't explain. So that is too bad. And they try to make it sort of like, oh, now the dad and the aunt are like, oh no, that couldn't have been real. So like they have to be reconvinced, I guess, but not really. Like, so that is sort of like a bummer to just know from the outset, she's magic, she's going to do magic stuff. And then the second one was when they go into the China Bowl, the idea, the thing you understand really immediately, and I like highlighted it in the summary, is like the kids have had to grow up too fast because their dad was grieving. He couldn't handle stuff. So they're going to the grocery store for him, like that kind of stuff that they have to do. And this is like the midway point, right? In the China Bowl, we would say the big adventure is like, she told them like, oh, don't wander too far away. And then they do. And then there's this whole chase and whatever. And I was like, but none of this is a good lesson for like kids who are already parentified. Like, why would this be the big thing that happens to them, is having to go and save their little brother? That's a story about a kid who needs to learn more responsibility, not less.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was like, they didn't carry through they had like a beginning and ending about grief and children relearning to be joyful, but they like didn't have the through line to support that that's what they were learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me it felt like that. So that one specifically, the only kind of clear through line they made was that it connects to that Colin Firth is the villain, and that like later, you know, he's the same wolf with the clock, with a pocket watch, and that, you know, a cover's not a book. Like it's someone that appears that it's going to be helping you is going to be the one that's actually not helping you. But like that feels like just to service that kind of plot, that like that's someone being deceitful, but doesn't necessarily aid to the overall plot of like, we have to help the family.
And we didn't need Colin Firth to be a villain for this movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be in
like
it.
the true heart of what I dislike about this movie. I don't even know if I would say dislike, but like my annoyance with this movie is the first movie. This movie has set it up as a sequel, so I have to talk about the first movie. If you don't want to hear me talk about the first movie, turn off the podcast now because it's going to happen a lot. The first movie has no external conflict. The conflict of the story
is within the family.
Was within the family structure itself. And she blows in because this letter sounds like a family who needs help. And fine, whatever. Most of the movie, nothing really happens other than they go on these little like fun adventures. And that's just like kids having fun. This is like the great thing about Mary Poppins is you can like turn on a segment of the film, watch it, and then you can walk away completely and be like, and I've seen Mary Poppins. It's great. What ends up being is that there is no villain. There's no antagonist of Mary Poppins. It is truly the protagonist is actually the father who needs to learn the lesson of how to like be an attentive parent and not a workaholic and care about his family in a real way. And this is how whatever nuclear family, blah, blah, blah. But like the end is they all come together. They fly kites, normal kites, because at this point they don't need magic anymore in order to have fun. The kites are regular kites. In fact, it's a broken kite that they fly. And then they're all together.
This is. I didn't even make that connection.
And they don't need Mary Poppins anymore. And that is why. Oh, I'm getting emotional. That is why she has to leave, because they have solved the problem. Yeah. This movie felt like it had to do the thing a lot of kids' movies do, and a lot of movies in general that I don't think are like maybe the best structured films, where they just put like a time limit that a person needs to do a thing because it automatically raises the stakes. It gives you a good set piece of like, when Big Ben strikes midnight, then I need to do a thing. So like you get to have this whole set piece built into the plot because for fun. And it's like a little action moment and whatever. But like, again, we already saw a version of this film that doesn't need that. So to think that it's like, the problem with doing a sequel like this is like you have to raise the stakes to some degree, but like they should have been organic or something. I feel like the film could have been fine if it really was just like he was devastated. Rules. He was devastated over the loss of his wife, and they like learn how to like come together as a family again.
Yeah. And yes, and to everything you said, that was amazing analysis of the first movie. I feel like even this movie just didn't need someone who was actively trying to subvert them. It would have been a better movie, in my opinion, if it was about the fact that like the system is uncaring and inflexible, and that they figure out how to navigate this system that's so uncaring, rather than like, and then there's also a guy at the bank who actually actively wants to take their house. Like, just make it be like, it's 5. I don't care. Like, I'm not invested, but like, sorry, it's 5 days.
Yeah.
I'm not invested. I don't care about the fact that it's 5 days. I just work at the bank and that's the rules.
Yeah.
And like, because of the fact that the children are so parentified, I feel like, again, it would have been a great opportunity to be like, and then they solve it through like childlike thinking in response to this very rules-based adult world. I think would have been a better thing than like the Colin Firth character. I didn't even include him in the summary because I was like, what does he actually add to the situation? Just make it the bank's fault, not a guy's fault.
Which was already established in the first movie anyway, of like the bank having to, and I do like that there is a coming back to it where like the money that young Michael put in, rather than giving to like the woman feeding the birds, like does save them at the end.
Invest in the bank is what
and look,
causes them to
compound
save
interest
the house.
is great, but it's not that great. We can all agree to that. We're in our 30s. We know this is
calm down.
Wouldn't that be nice if that's how it worked?
Yeah.
We all would have put tuppence in the bank 20 years ago, and now it's
But yeah, no, I agreed. Like they already had kind of those baked in things that they could have just ran with.
But it also like the Colin Firth plot, which I would say is like the B plot, even though it feels like
it's their main
so much time of the movie on this plot, is not thematically in link with what the A plot is either. It's not about, like, if the thing was at the end is like they have to accept the loss of their mother, but they can understand that, like, which I think is like a really beautiful sentiment.
Yeah.
And like, even though Disney kills a lot of its parental characters because it's like an easy way to gain sympathy for your main character, there is not a lot of Disney movies that say like it's okay to like be in grief and like sit with that.
We've only had one. We've had Inside Out, and that's pretty much it.
I mean, like, recent ones are more willing to do that than like the classics, but which like I think is like a lovely thing to like kind of show kids and blah blah blah. But like, what does that? They don't tie that into like the loss of the house. Like it's like two separate ideas. There is a way they could have married those ideas, but they don't try to do that because they don't marry. But they don't try to do that because they end up getting the house back, which we want them to have the house. It's fine. But like, it's such a bummer because on paper it does work. Like like
they made the money.
It's good. You can follow the plot. I'm sure kids like it. It's very bright.
Like very well done scenes. Like I've seen the behind the scenes of like how they film a lot of the sequences, like very.
And they do more CGI than I probably would have liked, especially because the
first movie was so much practical. Yeah.
But they do practical effects in this movie, and that is really cool. Like when they are floating on the balloons, they actually did like wire them up and pull them up and like stuff like that. Like
sliding down the bathtub, like.
Yeah, sliding down the bathtub was real. Like they actually built a slide into the bathtub. So like that's all fun. I like all of that. But like in their overarching goal to make Mary Poppins but make it bigger, they like lost kind of the fundamental thing that like makes Mary Poppins so rewatchable from like going from like as a child, I did not understand
that it was about
the dad. It literally took me until I was like a teenager, like early adult, where I was like, oh shit, this is actually like very impactful. And every time I've watched that movie since like, I don't know, the first time I saw it, I mean, especially as like an adult, there are so many things like I have discovered in watching the movie that I think are like really cool, like very specific lines and stuff like that. But this is not a movie that would reward the viewer in the same way from multiple rewatches.
There is a thing of, obviously, I want to talk about Michael. Should we do a song before we jump into Michael?
We can talk. That actually
songs. I forgot about those.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this is a musical. As much as I think the songs are not great, this is a musical. We can listen to a bit of A Conversation, which is actually Michael's song in the attic that he sings to his dead wife, which is deeply sad.
Just think about that.
Let's listen to a little bit of that.
This house is crowded now with questions. Your John's a walking questionnaire.
And I could surely use a few suggestions on how to brush our daughter's hair. When Georgie needed explanations, you always knew just what to say. And I miss our family conversations.
It's silent since you went away.
So, it's clear that, like, Michael is kind of going through the same thing that his father went through in this movie, right? Of, like, being phased, being, like, forced to only think about kind of their reality and their situation and losing the kind of innocence and wonder that he had when he was little. Like, it does feel like the screenwriters was like, the original movie was about the father learning the lesson. Let's really hone in on that for this character. I think Ben Rashad does a really great job. We kind of made a comment of like, he's truly taking this in as like, he's in the royal like court theater. Like the acting is so
totally straight. Yeah.
Like fully acting capital A that I'm like, it feels like they were just told that like the story is actually about the father and Michael. So like let's really hone in on that. That I wish there was a little bit more.
But I feel like, and Adam again is our resident expert. Let me know if I'm wrong, but like I feel like one of the things that works about the first movie is that while it is the father's story, that hits you kind of by surprise because it doesn't focus on him in the same way. And this feels like I don't remember a song from what's her name? Mr. Banks. From Mr. Banks' perspective, being like, let me set up how I'm doing internally, there
was never anything like that. He had a little bit of a theme in the beginning, right? Of like, order is blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything runs in place. And then,
But that just and when
But
you're
that's just like
watching
character
it,
setting
that just
almost.
feels like expository like
yes,
setup.
this is what the
And
kids
also,
have to
like,
go through every day.
yes,
Yeah,
it's more that because at the time when you're first watching it, you're like, oh, it's just like the dad's a hard ass,
Mhm.
but also it's 1964, so every movie is like this. The dad's a hard ass.
Yeah.
Um,
It's the
And then-
only variety of dads we have.
there's
Yeah.
it's only in the end when he has a conversation with Bert. It's a song,
Yes.
but he has a conversation with Bert where Bert like kind of like nudges him to be like, it is about that you're supposed to like take care of your family, and he's like, oh shit, you're right. It does suck that a man has
that
to
a
tell
man
us
has
that,
to.
but-
Yes, finally, he's like, oh, finally, I
Also,
can understand.
We shouldn't force women to have to do the emotional labor of
That's
explaining
true.
things to men
Bert
either,
is the
so.
feminist icon.
that we need.
Yeah, that's really my only thing. I think like I have nothing bad to say about his performance. I truly think like he is so. I mean, you really feel the stakes. But that's the thing. If the story wasn't so heavy-handed, I think he still would have given a really good, nuanced performance. That if it wasn't so focused on like he's running out of time, and the story may have been a little bit more kind of subtle in the way the first movie was about Mr. Banks's transformation. I think Ben Whishaw still would have done a really great performance, and he would have caught all of those kind of small things to lead the like, oh, it was about taking care of the original Banks children.
But it is actually frustrating now that we're talking about it this way too, that I was saying earlier, like the Colin Firth plot is like, I guess the B plot, even though they spend a lot of time on it.
Mhm.
But I don't even know if that's true. I think it is the A plot, and the Ben Whishaw thing is the B plot because it
yeah.
gets solved well before the A plot gets solved.
Yes,
like he
it's
has
in
that
the-
moment in the house where
in the
he's
house.
like,
after he disciplines them.
after he
basically.
disciplines them, that's when he realizes he was like being too hard on them, and then they like sees the kite, and that's when the rest of
So
the film happens.
isn't the real resolution, which I'm told very explicitly by the movie, is when he opens the door to joy in his life? Like he realizes he's done wrong, but it's not till he's like personally able to feel joy again.
Mary
his plot is
Poppins.
resolved.
The reason Mary Poppins can leave is because he has like basically remembered what it is to be a kid again.
Right.
But I don't agree with the film's conceit that is what he needed, to be honest.
Well, okay. I agree in the sense that I think that is often the hardest part of coming out of grief is
Mhm.
allowing yourself to feel joy
feel
again,
joy.
because it often feels like a betrayal of the person that you lost to feel
Yeah.
joyful. And so in that way, I think it worked.
Yes. There's just so much with the like mom dying. And again, we don't need to go to a flashback of her dying or anything, but I do think there's like things I wish that plot, even though it is dark, I wish it had been filled out more to explain like, because he has the conversation that we just listened to, the song. But there's apart from that, there's not like this feeling that he's like suffering, and the kids are like they're sad and they've had a hard year, and they reference the hard year many times. They like specifically called it the hard year. But that's very British in the way that they don't call it the Great Depression, they call it the Great Slump. Of course you do. But I don't know. I agree with what you're saying, but I don't know if the film did enough to like make that
connect. I mean, I agree with you both. I think, Adam, what you're thinking though is that because they had the race around the clock situation, it kind of distracted that almost, because then it ended up becoming, we got to get the thing to the thing before the time runs out. That like, to me, it felt like it undercut that sentiment of like he needs to kind of experience joy again. Because I do agree that it was a beautiful sentiment, but like the second half of the movie was so focused on like them trying to get to,
because if anything, it feels like
the
it's like,
deadline.
oh, he should learn. It's not even about like they don't even ever the word joy. Like I understand that you're using the term joy here,
Yeah.
but like
but for her, it was like until the
There's-
door opens.
right.
Yeah.
But like the only thing that I think they could have actually drawn on to make it more obvious is like he's going to like start painting again, because they make that a big
That's
plot point that he's given up,
true.
like, painting.
They
or
did
things
bring
that
it-
he loves.
And he didn't. It really didn't.
Yeah.
I think I made myself remember. Like, yeah, he paints again at the end. But I'm like, oh, no, he
Yeah.
doesn't.
No, he
I just
doesn't.
we don't get. It's frustrating because we don't see a version of him where he was really joyful at a time, and now we're seeing this version.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
I
so
think-
that's why I'm like, well, he seems
Fine.
he's not fine.
Yeah.
He's not
That's
fine,
very
but
clearly
it's like he's
clear. But
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
there's not a explanation of like, oh, it's that he needs to like remember what it's like to be a kid.
Yeah.
Because even Mary makes the I'm so sorry I keep cutting you off, but even Mary makes the comment that she's like, most adults do forget by the next day,
Yes.
like what they
Yeah.
actually went through. So like, I can't even guarantee that he's gonna. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why it bothered me that it was magic.
Yeah, more so even than seeing him and how joyful he used to be. I wish that we had seen something from the kids. Like, I assume they were joyful before because they are children, but like a flashback or just like one of them telling a story about a really fun day that they had or something. Because I wish that more of the movie was focused on the kids. I wish again that it was like, yes, I want there to be growth for the parent, but like a Mary Poppins movie that's about the dad like explicitly seems a little bit less fun. I feel like we kind of got very little of the children ultimately for it being a movie about the children. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting with the painting thing. What's interesting to me is that Michael taped the bank share thing to his kite, but he tore it up from the fact that his dad had drawn something on the back of that piece of paper, which to me is like kind of the biggest character development of the whole movie, is the idea that, oh, this guy used to be the kind of guy who would have sketched something on the back of like a piece of stock, like a very important document to keep intact. And he just like used it in this very careless way. And I'm surprised that there's not like, it seemed like it should have been setting up a moment where like Michael gets mad at his son for using this document that he's been looking for. And then he realizes like, oh, wait, I was really careless with this back in the day too. And like, I used to be the kind of person who didn't take these things so seriously. And it's never really like discussed the fact that there's like multiple layers to this piece of paper. Right. And so it felt like a missed opportunity with that.
Well, also I hate when movies do this. I hate when you're like, the thing has to get to the thing and then they do the thing and then it's not quite right, but there's still a Deus Ex Machina. Like, I just
Dick Van Dyke.
I didn't even need them to try to put the thing together and the signatures were missing. Like I was like, you went through all the. I understand that they did it for the reveal of Dick Van Dyke. And like, listen, did my eyes light up the minute he walks into screen?
Did his little ditty
when he dances at 93 years old like that, and that's not a body double. Wild that this man is this agile. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Somebody study his chromosomes. But. I don't know. It's just like so there's a hat on a hat and it bothers me.
Yeah. Do you know what a better way to do it is? And I did like the character who was like the overly sympathetic bank guy who ends up letting them into the door.
Fry,
But what they should have was Colin Firth should have locked the door and when they're trying to get in, and then we should have just seen a hand unlock it and we like don't know who it is. Then they come in and they reveal it and whatever. And then he's like, who let you in here? And then Dick Van Dyke busts down the door. And it's like, me! He starts tap dancing on his desk.
Yeah.
That would have been the way to do it. Yeah.
Well, let's listen to it.
Well, so the everything has its exact pull from the original film.
Yes.
So
let's get into those beats that are repeated.
If the first film has a spoonful of sugar, this movie has Can You Imagine That?
Some monster when adventure calls, can you imagine that? And sail straight over waterfalls, can you imagine that? They see living as its own reward. Ahoy! They rock the boat, then man overboard! Some people look out on the sea and see a brand new day. Their spirit lifts them high above the blue. Some others bear an anchor and they sink in seconds flat. So, perhaps we've learnt when day is done, some stuff and nonsense could be fun. Can you imagine that?
And look, in our series of movies that aren't quite Mary Poppins for the summer, they go right into that underwater sequence, all of Bed Nuts and Broomsticks. I was a little bit shocked.
Right?
I forgot that they went underwater.
Yeah. Like fully like, oh yeah, now let's fully bake that idea that we were kind
nobody's hair is wet. It's not real.
Yeah.
This is where the CGI really felt CGI to me.
Yes.
In this sequence.
Did it feel wild to
this man then he went from this to directing The Little Mermaid?
Did it feel wild though that like it started here versus like starting with more of the animated, they are in an animated world like in the
RJ, thank you for letting me talk about this.
Oh
okay.
God, I didn't even know
ready.
where I was going.
The other problem I have with this movie is that there is not a
the microphone is
it's so close.
I need you to start pacing the room, Adam, and we'll capture your
I gotta go back to it.
Show.
I the first movie, Mary Poppins, let's say 1.
Let's say.
Is very good, I think, especially in the very beginning of the film. And Molly actually alluded to this with that there is a build to her magic.
Yeah.
The like stories, like a spoonful of sugar, they clean the room and the room just cleans by itself. But they don't go anywhere. It's not like a fun adventure. They clean the bedroom. And so you can almost imagine if you're told your parents, we clean the room cleaned by itself. And then you go up and you look and the room's clean. You'd be like, well, you had so much fun cleaning. Like that's the trick of Mary Poppins.
It's a metaphor for like Mary Poppins knows how to make these everyday things fun and she motivates children to do things. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely. We just go right from the woman arrives and she goes to give them a bath. And I think it's fun. Like it's a fun, it's similar in like, it's a cleaning thing.
It's a cleaning.
Oh my God.
It's something you just have to you trudge through.
Yes. And I will say.
In Bedknobs too, they didn't want to take a bath.
Yes.
The kids in this
hate
era,
baths.
they just hate.
Kids hate baths.
Kids hate baths.
I think kids hate baths generally, actually. The one thing I do want to say about that I'm very pro about this movie in terms of screenplay is I think Mary Poppins's lines sound like Mary Poppins. Like the way her dialogue is very like those like
The cutting
little jokes. Yeah. But anyway, back to this. They like go underwater and then they're in a full CGI thing. And I didn't even need it to be, I don't know what I would have done instead. Right. Cause like, what's the bathroom equivalent of like,
full of sugar.
I mean, she could have made things out of the bubbles and those things could have come alive. I can tell you right now what they could have done. But because every single song in this is just like one left step away from the original movie song, I would have felt even more aware of the fact that they were just redoing Spoonful of Sugar had they done it that way. So like, I guess the one reason I liked that they went really whole hog was like, they knew the magic was revealed. They didn't want to make it exactly the same. At least they did something kind of different from the first Mary Poppins song in the first movie.
Yeah.
I just wish
it didn't work for me.
Yeah, I just wish that we started with something a little bit more familiar first before really just diving into like, now it's something different.
Yeah,
also
it was
like
huge scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it's huge. I mean, this is like the greatest example of like, we have upped the budget. We are in 2018 and we are upping the budget. And
nothing's stopping us. Nothing in the world will stop us after 2018.
Nothing can grind us to a halt after 2018.
Right. Exactly. I also just like think, in terms of like, there are now, so you go from Mary Poppins, which has one sequence where they go into the chalk pavement picture, to this, where now there's like the bowl and there's this like CGI sequence. And like one just feels so much warmer and livelier. And it's clearly the China bowl. And this one feels cold for some reason. Like I know it's not supposed to be, but like when like the fun of 2D animation, and you can still make 3D animation this way, they just refuse to do it, is like they are insistent on being like, oh, it looks real life. Like the dolphins have to look like dolphins. No, they don't. They can look like cartoons. Like that's what's fun.
But see,
about
then I
cartoons.
think it would have been too similar to the China Bowl sequence. I think it's why they didn't. But yeah, it just is too big a scale. I will say, I think this is my favorite song though of the movie.
I agree. Musically. I think it's the most exciting.
Yeah.
In a sense that like, yes, we just talked about the visuals being so crazy, but like I did feel like the excitement of the song works of like anything that you can imagine can actually happen. Isn't that crazy? And I this is the least of the cringy like lyrics, because I do think like overall the lyrics for me gets a little cringy as the movie goes on. This feels the most like fresh.
It was the moment, because I was like going into it being like, okay, we're doing Mary Poppins again. I'm understanding the exposition, whatever.
Yeah.
This was the song where I was like, maybe I'm really going to like this movie, was actually during this song. Because I liked the song and I liked the bit of the dolphin coming up and her saying not till later. And then at the end, they're like, all the dolphins are, I thought that was cute. I liked that a lot. Yeah. So this was my most hopeful moment in the process of watching Mary Poppins Returns, that I would genuinely enjoy the experience.
Yeah, because there is a setting of like, this isn't what you think this Mary Poppins.
This isn't your mama's Mary Poppins.
Yes, this is Emily Blunt's Mary Poppins, because there is a little bit more of a, I think she is biting. It feels a little bit more.
Oh, she's colder than Julie's for sure.
That's the other thing I want to talk about as we're getting into Mary actually being there. She seems kind of severe, doesn't she?
She's more true to the book Mary in this one.
Okay.
Which is like, I mean, not to get too into it, but like when they did the stage adaptation.
Yes, I famously was in.
Okay. When they did it, they had to like, in order to get P.L. Travers to sign off on doing it, they had to like agree to certain things. So they had to agree that the Sherman Brothers were not going to make more music. She hated the original music. They could keep the original songs because they're already in the canon. But
get new people to write new songs?
You had to get new people to make new songs. And then the other thing is she just really wanted it to be more like the actual books. Like Mary is too nice in the original movie, which I think works for
Julie,
an American audience, more than I think it does, honestly, for a British audience that like maybe for some segment of the population grew up with like an actual nanny in their house. That's all I want to say. I think Emily Blunt's really good in this.
I mean, I like the concept of a character who is quite severe, whose job is to teach people to be joyful. I think that that's a cool concept. And I do think that there's like a real, as a person who works with kids, there's like a real truth to the idea of like, sometimes in order to create an environment where kids can be kids and have fun, you have to like take on being the serious one so that can happen. And it feels counterintuitive, but like, you got to be the reliable. And that, again, I think is where I wanted more of the, like, they're learning how to be kids again thing. And I wish that, as we're going to get into the China Bowl thing, and what I didn't like about them saving their little brother was like, I wish that it was that Mary saved them, because it should be a story about learning to rely on adults again, because it should be the adult that saves you. You should be able to trust the people in your life that the grownups are going to do the hard stuff for you. Right. And so I liked that idea, but I guess I didn't feel like they did enough with it necessarily, at least in parts. I mean, definitely at the end, she kind of comes through clutch with the clock and everything, but I would have liked to have seen
the clock.
You know, that clock.
You know, the one on the
clock.
big, yeah.
That clock.
I would have liked to have seen more of like a moment where you go, oh, I understand why she's so serious, even when she's introducing magical things, because I see where it pays off in this thing that she does with the kids, you know?
Yeah. I wish I don't know how you would do it. They had to make the kids adults. Like they had to like, they're adulting.
Make Michael and Jane adults. Yeah.
No. They had to make the kids. Like they had to grow them up quick. So then the lesson that they learn is like, they need to like appreciate being kids, or
like everyone as a family. Kids better. Yeah. Everyone can kind of rekindle that.
But like, they also have them. It's not like, there's just, I don't know what it is. Something about it doesn't totally work for me in like the way that they're like little grown-ups, but then they have this like really dumb argument over the bowl. I know the bowl is like a metaphor for really, it's like about their mother, and like, it's actually a bigger thing. Huge if true.
The bowl is a meta. They didn't hit that home at all.
But yeah, I mean, the Royal Dalton Music Hall moment when they go into the China Bowl, which I really can't talk about enough how much like this segment is so enjoyable to watch, because it really does give you that like the thing that Disney's really good at, of being like, when even though you know they are not interacting with real characters around them, like something about the charm of like that it looks so different, like makes it almost work better.
The shot where like they get onto the carriage and you see that it's being like driven by a 2D guy, but it's like the perfect angle, and they decorated the carriage in exactly the right way where it feels really seamless. I was really impressed. Yeah.
Also, the costuming is incredible. The outlines on their costumes.
Okay, wait. So I've heard that there's some controversy about these costumes. Like some people love them, and some people felt like it was like disappointing, because it's sort of this, you can see where they're colored, they're shaded in, and it's not like fantastical enough kind of. And I didn't dislike the costumes, but I felt like there were a lot of art styles going on in this sequence, and none of them were like a China Bowl, was my feeling.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like the animation, it made me think of 101 Dalmatians, which is one of my favorite Disney movies. It's my favorite animation style. Yes. So I liked it because I like that kind of like line drawing.
You see the sketches.
Thing.
Yeah.
But then their outfits were like watercolory to me. And then like the setting I guess was kind of China Bowl-esque,
Like
but I just thought they
porcelain,
could
yeah.
have done more to make everything in like like the question of like if porcelain could move, what would it look like? I thought
Yeah.
could have been way more explored visually.
Yeah. Yeah, they kind of, as soon as they go over the edge of the bowl and into the mid, I don't even
the bowl.
understand. Into the bowl. They really kind of give up on the fact that like, the
And
idea
it's a
that they're-
cartoon
all
world.
porcelain.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're
When they enter is really like, that's kind of the main thing.
I do like them sliding down the bowl. I think that's a fun
I liked
idea.
the cracked texture at the beginning, like that was
I just
fun.
wish that had been more.
consistent.
I almost wish that their outfits had been like you felt like they were restrictive and like brittle, right? Like
Yeah,
that would have
yeah.
been cool. Yeah.
But I don't even know what I was gonna fucking say. Oh my god. I totally lost
I
it.
blew you away with my amazing art analysis that you can't even
Analysis.
remember.
The bowl.
The bowl,
Okay. This is obviously the chalk pavement picture. The
Mhm.
way the chalk pavement picture ends, in case you haven't seen Mary Poppins in a while, is it just starts raining. And so they have to get out. They are forced out of the chalk pavement picture because it starts raining and then they just go home. Nothing bad happens. They go, they end up in a horse race. Mary wins the horse race. They sing Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and then it starts raining. And that's it. And that's the little adventure they went on that day, and it's fine. And then they have to go take medicine because they got wet from the rain. Fine. This one, this bothers me more than like having the like
the weather, all of it all.
having like Colin Firth as a villain, whatever, fine. You've decided that for the movie. This beat it over the head, but for no.
Yeah, it wasn't like
You could have done the song of like cover is not the book, and then it still would have tied into Colin Firth in general. Like it.
Yeah.
You didn't need the 1-to-1 comparison in the middle to then come back.
We already saw when we were introduced to the Colin character that he was deceitful or that there's something going on.
You know from the beginning he's a bad
because he throws
guy.
the damn
Yeah.
page into the fire.
There's also like another thing is like it's not like he's charmed them in some way and that's integral to his plot either. He's just
Right.
like a guy
No.
who works at the bank and like they don't realize he's got bad intentions, but like it wouldn't matter if they did know that. It's not like
Yeah.
he's like coming over for dinner and they need to like get
Right.
back to their
yeah,
house
he's
and
not
they're
Uncle
learning
William.
a lesson about
that's
that.
right.
Yeah. So it doesn't really like I don't feel like that's an important lesson that they need to be learning in the course of the movie.
I mean, it is a fun anti-capitalist film in the way that it's like, don't trust a bank.
Sure.
I guess.
Fine.
I feel like yeah, also it's funny that the idea of like it rains and that's how it ends and that like this is where it's the exact opposite of the original thing it's spoofing because
Yeah.
like chalk is ephemera, like that is the basic thing about sidewalk chalk is that it's going to go away when it rains and like China bowls are like like they're supposed to be kept and the problem is that they broke it and it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're supposed to not ever break
Yeah.
it or have it go away. So yeah, and I don't know. I mean, like it's their mothers. They broke it. They don't want to cop to that. I agree that it's like thematically inconsistent because the idea is supposed to be that they're two grown up. So almost it should be like they all try to protect each other by saying that I broke it or something would make more
Mhm.
sense. But like also like why have a China bowl be the thing that is it? The only thing I could think of was like it's delicate and they're worried about forgetting their mother. I feel like is kind of what comes up.
Yeah.
But
It is
it's
from
not-
it is from the original stories. I'll say that the China Bowl
Okay.
sequence is like a real one. Jane falls into the China Bowl and she almost gets like sold. She almost gets like taken by a family and like forced to work for them, and then Mary Poppins comes and saves her. I mean, the
Okay.
books are darker than the first movie for sure.
Yeah.
Not totally, but specific parts are.
Interesting.
Yeah, because
I-
it doesn't even come back later. The only thing way it comes back is that like it's not actually priceless. Like the kids just realize that like
Yes,
we've been
another thing
holding
where
on
it's
to that it's just a memory for them. But it's not like the dad's like it doesn't carry any weight farther than just the three of them trying to find a solution for the big deadline that they're trying to reach.
Because
Like, it
they
just
have to
kinda
have a reason to
sucks.
go visit Topsy, and so that's how this bowl situation happens. I can't even.
But we gotta see
We gotta see Topsy. But well, first of all, let's listen to a cover is not the book before I get into
Yeah.
Topsy. This is a cover is not a book. This is a real. If there's
a real
if
song.
this is a real song
It's a real
that
song.
also like this does not feel like anything in the first movie. This is like
No,
its
that's
own
true.
is its
full
own
moment.
I guess
girl.
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is supposed to be what it's.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Once upon a time in a nursery rhyme, there was a castle with a king hiding in a wing. Cause he never went to school to learn a single thing. He had scepters and swords and a parliament of lords, but on the inside he was sad, egad, because he never had a wisdom for numbers, a wisdom for words. Though his crown was quite immense, his brain was smaller than a bird's. So the queen of the nation made a royal proclamation to the missus and the messes, the more or lessers, bring me all the land's professors. Then she went to the hairdressers, and they came from the east and they came from the south. From each college they poured knowledge from their brains into his mouth. But the king couldn't learn, so each professor met their fate. For the queen had their heads removed and placed upon the gate. And on that date, I stayed their wives, I got a note, their mate was now the late great. But then suddenly one day a stranger started in to sing. He said, I'm the dirty rascal and I'm here to teach the king. And the queen clutched the jewels, for she hated royal fools. But this fool had some rules they really ought to teach in schools. Like, you'll be a happy king if you enjoy the things you got. You should never try to be the kind of person that you're not. So they sang and they laughed, for the king had found a friend. And they ran onto a rainbow for the story's perfect end. So the moral is you mustn't let the outside be the guide, for it's not so cut and dried. Well, unless it's Dr. Jekyll, then you better hide. Petrified! No, the truth can't be denied, as I now have testified. All that really counts and matters is the special stuff inside.
Here's what I'll tell you I think is missing from this.
Okay.
Any sort of sexual tension between Mary and whatever the guy's name is that Lin-Manuel is playing. Jack. And I understand that they decided that the plot of this was going to be that Jack and Jane get together.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons Mary Poppins slaps is that she and Bert have this little flirtatious energy thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to not do that in any way in this movie. And it makes their whole cabaret sequence pretty dull, I think.
Yeah. That's true.
What did I say the song reminded me of? Like, Folie Bergère from 9.
Oh my God.
the bob specifically was very put Judi Dench in a bob. That's kind of what it was giving me.
Well, and then we had like a little Hamilton rap in there.
Oh, yeah.
But there's one where it's like, so we told Lynn that he got to do one thing, and it was this, and it's this whole story. I don't know what the story was about. My brain could not process it in time of what he was telling me. And look, the man writes amazing musicals. Nothing against it, but it didn't fit here. This wasn't the time nor the place.
This wasn't the time or the place.
For a Lynn word heavy meander.
I told RJ this yesterday, is like anytime Lynn isn't a thing and then they make him rap, I get he's good at it. I'm not even taking that away from him. It's more just like, it's inevitable. So when it comes, you're like, well, okay, here it is. I have to sit through this now and then it'll be over. Whereas like if they just didn't make him rap and he just like sang the whole movie, you'd be like, I can't believe they didn't make Lynn rap, but he was really good.
Yeah.
Like I just
and again with the like, it's all a repeat of something else we've seen before. It did make me feel like, oh yeah, remember Hamilton, a thing you liked a lot more than this movie that you're watching. Like I didn't need
Here's
that
the guy
reminder.
that did it. Yeah.
But
I thought the dance was fun. The like chorus dance of like boop boop boop.
Yeah.
Articulate.
Yeah.
But
Eloquence.
The show within the show. I don't know.
I think apart from, it's almost very similar to Bedknobs and Broomsticks, how I liked the first part of the animated sequence. And then they go into this long thing that I was like, I don't need this part. It's not about this.
Because there is the like, hello Dolly moment of Mary Poppins. That's always fun, right? Like she goes into the magical world and everyone's like, oh my God, it's Mary Poppins.
Oh yeah.
Like that's,
she's like famous, but nobody knows that she's famous.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I like that. So it's not even about like her getting a phone number that was like annoying. It was more just that it went on.
Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. They exit the China Bowl by way of falling off the edge, and I do like that it's just like every single decision is like 50-50 if I like it or not. I really like that it's a nightmare. I like that they like are like
you like the justifications all the time. You do like the Mary being like, oh, that's preposterous. Oh, that's crazy.
Yes, because that is so Mary. Is she does not acknowledge the fact that magic is happening. Yeah. Even when like her umbrella's talking, she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's very funny to me to lie into someone's face like that.
Or even like when she
something
like,
Adam does it all the time
to gaslight people.
Even when she was like putting the papers away, she was just like, I'm just putting the papers away. And yes, she's doing it like in a magic thing, but
I didn't like the papers. But that was because it was all CGI, and I was like, You literally did this in the first version of this movie, and it was all like stills and like motion or what is it called? Stop motion animation. Like, come on. Anyway, whatever. That's fine. I'm not gonna yell about that. Can we talk about the place where lost things go?
So they wake up from the nightmare.
I would say the
killing part of
the sad,
the heart fluttering moment of the movie.
The feed the birds.
The feed the birds. Ooh, the feed the birds. You're right.
It is Feed the Birds. It's not anywhere near as good as Feed the Birds. I would say it's actually closer to the song Stay Awake, which is her like lullaby that's supposed to be like, don't go to sleep. It's fine. Just stay awake. And then they all fall asleep. It's like doing both in one moment, in one song. I found out in my research that there is a doll that the older kid,
the giraffe. The older kid.
The older kid has. He has
Annabelle?
He has like no, the boy.
Yes.
Whatever his name was.
The twin.
I think he was making a joke about the doll being Annabelle. She's a horror character.
Adam. But the daughter is also named Annabelle.
Chucky.
Oh, is the daughter named Annabelle?
Yes.
Molly didn't
I know nothing about these kids. These kids were blank faces
ephemeral.
to me.
Yeah, Georgie was truly
Georgie is the star of the children.
Because this is the third. They literally do the same thing from Bedknobs and Broomsticks, where it's like 3 siblings, and the youngest sibling is the most precocious, and obviously
John, Annabelle, and Georgie.
The fact that nobody listens to the little sibling in Bedknobs and Broomsticks came up in my real life, which is that I do a phone call most Sundays with my mom and my sister. They like to play this like New York Times game where you have like letters. You have to make as many words as you can with the letters. And they were both like,
just going.
How is any of this shocking to you, Adam, knowing me? They were like, there's one more word we cannot get.
And you kept saying the word over and over again?
And they were like, it's a coffee thing. And I was like cortada, or like there could be like a lot of and so I gave them some examples.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, I don't know. And then later my sister texted me and she was like, it was cortado. And I was like, that was the first thing that I said. And she was like, I don't remember that happening. When you talk, it's just like a Charlie Brown teacher speaking. And my mom was like, you're the youngest child in Bedknobs and Broomsticks. It's just nobody ever listens to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have things to contribute.
Allegedly. So John he's holding a doll in this sequence.
Sure.
And I didn't remember this, but I read about it. He's holding a doll. It's actually a doll that was like made by his aunt, and his like right before this movie filmed, his aunt and his grandma had passed away. So it's very sweet knowing that. That's all I wanted to say, because I think that's a very lovely moment in the fact that this song is like about the loss of their mother.
Yeah, that is very beautiful. Yeah.
Now Adam will drag the song.
No, I think the song is good. I don't think it's a bad song. I don't think it's like the most interesting. And it unfortunately took me a little like halfway through the song before I was like, it's not. Oh, it's about the mom.
It's about the mom.
It's not about the bowl. It's not about the bowl.
Nightmare.
Okay, got it. So I was like dumb in that regard. I don't know. I just wanted to play the song. So here's the song.
Time to close your eyes so sleep can come around. For when you dream, you'll find all that's lost is found. Maybe on the moon, or maybe somewhere new. Maybe all you're missing lives inside of you. So when you need her touch and loving gaze, gone but not forgotten is the perfect phrase. Smiling from a star that she makes glow. Trust she's always there, watching as you grow. Find her in the place where the lost things go.
So is the place where lost things go heaven? Is it religious? I'm letting the Catholics take this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We always
We're
have
the
to
only
tie
two
it
that are
back.
religious. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think it's like she's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's
I feel
just
like,
lost, like the
seeing her
memory
and
of
things,
her,
yeah.
her energy, her vibes, her
Also,
source
this is not
energy.
a Christian world with magic. That's
No.
not, you know what I mean?
Well,
Unless it's
RJ's
a
family
miracle.
might disagree.
Unless it's a miracle from God.
Yeah.
It did. I think for a movie that we said that like it's heavy-handed in some places, it does feel like the through line, going back to the through lines of things, the through line of their grief being what they kind of have to overcome.
Mhm.
I feel like it crests here, and then like the rest just becomes like a Rush Hour movie where they have to race against Big Ben. You know, like I wish there was a little bit more connecting
Yeah.
of like the sentiments and the lesson that they learned here is what could ultimately save them. But I wouldn't know. But I don't think it would fit in the
I don't
adventure.
mind them having this moment midway through and then being able to spend the rest of the movie having fun. I think, again, what I was saying about like grief, I feel like that's often the last step of grief. And I think the idea of you have to decide like, what's my worldview going to be about like where is this person that used to be such a big presence in my life, I think is an important, like, it's almost like the first step in being able to then come back fully into life. And so I like the idea of that. And I do think that the rest of the movie is almost like stronger in the narrative of like the kids they're just learning it through little episodes of fun stuff. But like that I think it's good to, I wouldn't like it if this was like the 11 o'clock number. And then it was like all the joy happens right after this.
Yeah.
Big
Right?
powerhouse ballad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Okay. It would never have been an 11 o'clock number in that sense. I just mean
The time.
in terms
The
of
time
the
is
timing.
11.
The time is 11.
Yeah. So I do like that. And I don't know. I mean, it's fine. It's just, it's very slow. And, you know, it was hard after having done the whole sequence in the bowl where I was like, okay, I'm seeing how this movie is just going to be a repeat of Mary Poppins. It wasn't a moment where I was ready for turning down the volume and chilling out and listening to a song about grief.
It's also interesting. The thing about the kids too is like the kids in the first one don't really have a problem. Like the dad is the problem, but like that's his problem. Like it sucks that he's not being a dad, but like everything they're learning from Mary Poppins is just like how to be a good person, how to have fun, how to be a good person. Because like Feed the Birds is just, it's like a song about like feeding
birds.
Talking about feeding birds.
I think there's a little bit more to it than that.
It's like it's a. Sorry. I had to like think about to explain it. Feed the Birds is like it's like
kindness.
it's a metaphor of like do unto. I mean, truly,
yes, the golden rule.
Being a good person. Yeah.
It's
giving charity. Yeah.
Right.
Pay your tithes.
It's just like pay your taxes.
Pay your taxes.
Yeah. Feed Uncle Sam. And I think that's nice in the first movie is that because the kids are all right. That Mary's whole thing with them is like, well, I'm just raising you, just teaching you good things. But like in this one, because there's like a crisis that they've gone through. That's what it's about. It's not necessarily bad here nor there, but like I liked that I felt like it was a little neater in the first one. I don't know.
So okay, she comes. Mary Poppins comes back. Let's go all the way.
She returns. What you say?
Mary Poppins, you can say
rewind.
You can say Mary Poppins returns,
Okay.
and she makes a thing of like, I'm here to take care of the bank's children, and then they make a comment of like, oh, these three, I don't even remember who, and then she says, oh yes, them too.
Yes,
alluding to the fact that like she really is there
to take care of
Jane and Michael,
which she doesn't do anything for Jane. Other than set her up on a date.
Get her a man.
The only thing she needs is a man, honey.
Oh, honey.
With those pants, she doesn't want one.
I tell you, girl, she barked up the wrong tree. But throughout the movie, she's ultimately helping the three kids, so that way the three kids can get to a place to help their dad. And then that's kind of like that kind of feeds into when I was saying like someone understood that as like that's the theory and the point of the first movie, and they're like, we gotta lay it on thick that like that's what Mary's doing, because I think there was just a little bit I don't know.
It's more sly in the first one, the way Mary sets everything up so that the kids take care of the dad.
Because even the little things of like her watching the kids run to William's office, like I was like, it's a little too obvious, or like on the nose that like it's
so overplayed.
She's setting the stage that I'm turning a blind eye for them to run to Colin Firth's office.
I wish he had just left. I get that you want it to be like Mary set this up, but I hate that she took the briefcase from him on his way out the door so that they had to go return it. Like I was like, I don't want her to be like an attack. Like she doesn't even set it up that bad. Like the first movie, all she does is she sets up that her day off is this day. And she goes, today's my day off. So you should take the kids to the bank. And then she convinces him through song, like, you're taking the kids to the bank. And then he's like, I'll take the kids to the bank. And then they go to the bank and everything breaks loose, like I'm sure she anticipated or whatever, in her omniscient power as God. And everything is predestined. So then it like sets up, and then but that's the only real thing that like she kind of sets into motion. Whereas like I think this one had a little bit more like she has to do a few more things in order for the results to finally happen.
Yeah.
She had to turn back the hands of Big Ben. And then the only other thing I wanted to say is something I forgot about while I was talking about that. Oh, the dad in Mary Poppins,
Mr. Banks.
The moment he realizes the beautiful thing that his kids do that makes him like realize that
he needs to change his ways.
He needs to change his ways and that they love him no matter what, is they give him the tuppence to like bring back to the bank. I'm so emotional about this movie. I love this movie so much. They give him the tuppence to bring back because they feel like everything is their fault. They set the run on the bank, which blah, blah, blah. And so if he's going to get sacked, maybe he can save his job. But if they just give him the tuppence to like give back to the bank and everything will be okay. And it's like that child. I sound crazy. One moment.
It's so funny. We went from 0 to 100. We were just
giggling kiki, and then I start weeping.
It's giving workroom, honestly.
No, it's just
giving workroom.
It's the thing that Molly was just talking about, where it's like I wish it was like their simple child ideas saved the film.
Yeah,
because that is what saves the first film. Is like when they have this idea of like, oh, we'll just give the tuppence back and it'll be fine, which like in their head makes sense, but obviously externally. In what world would there was a run on the bank. The bank has no money anymore. Tuppence is not going to do it. But like, it's that beautiful, like innocence is what like makes the situation better. And this just doesn't have that because they stripped the kids like innocence away from them almost. I guess in like one respect, it's like he fixed his kite with the thing. And so that's like the way that it works. I don't know. It's not as tidy. I'm sorry.
It's definitely not as tight. I think the whole plot is just a little bit muddied in a way that's really frustrating because they had lots of time to think of what the sequel was going to be.
Yes.
And they didn't. And yeah, I agree. I do like though, RJ, what you said earlier about Mary's line saying like, oh, also these Banks kids too, basically. And the idea that it still is really a movie about her helping Michael and Jane. Because one thing I found frankly horrifying is the fact that she does not say goodbye to the children at the end of the movie. Does that happen in the first one? That she doesn't say?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And
So I just forgot about that.
Umbrella scolds her for it.
Okay. Interesting. I forgot that was in the first movie.
It's the saddest part of the movie is that she never says goodbye.
I'll forgive it a little bit more for that as well. But she does say goodbye to Michael and Jane. And I was watching it being like, how very dare you do this to these children? But if you think of it as really it's about her and Michael and Jane, then that, that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, to just like, they like go in their house and then they turn around and their nanny's just not there anymore. Traumatizing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's ultimately her thing is like, it's super nanny, right? Like the point is to not need me anymore. Like you
for sure, but you can say goodbye to people.
You can say goodbye to the people who literally emotionally relied on you for the past like week, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay, allow them to become aware of the fact that you're leaving. Yeah.
So they go the next day. They go
save the dad.
They
Wait, but
have-
is it? Sorry, can we go back to the first movie for a second? I'm not thinking about the ending of it.
I'd
Isn't
love
there a
to
thing
go
with
back.
like the wind?
Adam would rather stay there.
Isn't there a thing about the wind and the wind is like calling her or something
The
like
wind-
that?
when
About
the
to
wind
begin.
changes. Is
So there's
when
a
she
sense of
leaves.
like it's not up to her own volition. Like she almost wishes she could stay, but there's this like greater
Yes.
force that's pulling her back. That's not in this one, right? She's just like,
She like knew
It'll
her
be-
purpose in it.
yeah, it'll be when the door
She's-
opens.
when the door opens, and then there's
Which
like
I guess
a big
happens with the wind.
gust
The
of
wind does
wind.
it or
Yes.
whatever. But it didn't have the same sense of like I feel like in the first one you could almost say like, oh, maybe she like literally can't even say goodbye. Maybe that's part of this like bigger thing that's calling her. Or she like doesn't have time. And this felt a lot more like I have seen that I've accomplished my objective and I will now leave without saying anything. And that
This
just
is-
seems cruel.
This is the one thing about like making her a little more severe is
Yeah.
like they're very similar in the way the ends play out for Mary, because like in the first one she like watches them run down the street with their dad as they sing let's go fly a kite. She knows that the wind has already changed. It's already happened, and she's like been packing her things, and they're very sad that she is leaving because she's already said like the wind has changed, it's time for me to go. She doesn't say goodbye, but she's like packing up, and then their dad comes home from the bank, or I'm probably out from the pub, to be honest. Comes back, and he is singing let's go fly a kite. Or he's singing, I don't know what he's singing, but he's singing something, and then they all go as a family out together down to the park to fly the kite. And she watches them out the window. The parrot's like, how very dare you not say goodbye? And she was like, they don't need me anymore, and that's the point. And then she like,
But they had a
Gross.
sense that she was going to leave. It sounds like at
Yes,
least
they were
because they've seen
very-
her pack up
they
and
were
such.
crying. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that seems different from how it plays out in this movie.
yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't
just,
even-
like leave.
The kid
They
and the
just
kids fully were just like, oh yay, like we got our house back. Like, you know, like there's just they completely forget about her. Almost like the three kids in that whole last
fine.
sequence.
I'm not mad at the kids. That's fine with me. It's the fact that she doesn't give them any warning about the fact that she's going to leave. It seems
Right.
like
Yeah.
the last
But-
thing that they talked about was them being like, "Oh, we're gonna get kicked out. We're gonna all have to live in an apartment." And she was like, "Yeah, I'll live in the apartment with you, no problem." Like it felt like she was very much implying,
That's
like,
true. That's true.
"I'll be
yeah.
with you through thick and thin, kids, up until this moment."
I almost don't even.
And now it's thin. See ya.
I almost didn't even need it to be like. It could have just been when the wind changes again. It didn't need to be when the door
Yeah.
opens. Like it just. Because
They needed something different in this movie.
but they didn't. Because like the wind wasn't.
The door and the wind are two different things, Adam.
The wind
the door
was-
is a door opening.
The wind was
The door
already.
is a door, and the wind is the wind. I don't know how
They're
to
two different
explain this to you.
nouns.
A door is
get it.
different from wind. In its
Like-
doorness. Do you see what I'm saying?
The capital D door.
Door. It's a lamp. It's wind. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a bowl.
So stupid. Great.
Uh,
I just think it could have been a wind changes. It's fine. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It's already
I
a
agree.
metaphor that works for any change. Any
Yeah.
change, and the wind is changed. Wow.
the wind.
We
There
already
it
did
is. We did it. We solved it.
Can we talk about the next day where they go visit Cousin Topsy?
I guess.
Great. Why is this in this movie? I hated
Because
this.
there was a scene in the first one where they drank tea and they went on the
And then
ceiling.
they're
And
in
they
the
said, how do we get
ceiling.
into the
Like, how
ceiling
are we gonna
again?
see them?
But we got to take one little step to the left. So it's not exactly the same.
Here, they literally were like, "What if the ceiling was down
But
there?"
crap. This was where I got actually offended by how much of a beat for beat remake it was. This was where I was
this
like,
was the
how
most
dare
egregious.
you? How dare you act like you've done something here?
And there are so many. Each book has like a cousin that they visit. Like,
Yes, that's
Mary
like the thing.
It's like
She's
a whole
got-
thing. She's
yeah,
got all
she's
these like
got all
crazy
these
kooky
kids.
cousins.
Yeah.
And fine. I just like, why is it Meryl Streep? Why is it this? Why did I find out that they spent like a shit ton of money on building the set? And I was like, is it worth, like, was any of this worth this moment for just and then they just find, that's the other thing too, is like, all of these things fall back into the plot, which you would think is like, well, that's better than the original because most of these adventures they go on have nothing to do with the plot. So maybe it's even better. But like, there's something about then it just feels superfluous. Like they go to fix this China bowl and she's like, okay, I can fix the China bowl, but it's priceless. And then they never go pick up the China bowl.
Yeah, that's very true.
What was it for?
Cousin Topsy never rang back and be like, "Hey guys,
She sold the bowl.
The bowl is fixed, so if
She
you'd like to
should've-
pick it up."
There should have been a scene when they have the balloons where just the bowl floats
And
by
it's
on
the
a balloon.
Yeah, anything. I just
Cousin Topsy with the bowl, like, hey guys,
Yeah.
here's the bowl.
I'm trying to get it. And then she drops it and it's the whole thing. Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, you know what? The bowl was priceless. So it doesn't even matter.
let's listen to, unfortunately, a little bit of Turning Turtle.
Fast is slow, low is high, stop is go, and that is why every second Wednesday is a hurdle. From 8 to 9, all is well, then I roll over on my shell and all, because the world is turning turtle. Day is night, dog is cat, black is white, thin is fat, that is why I'm loosening up my girdle. I cannot help this charming troop, don't mock me, cause I'm in the soup, and why? Because the world is turning turtle. Oh, is me.
I listened to a podcast called Podcast the Ride, and they reference Cousin Topsy so much. It's like a running bit on the podcast of like everyone's favorite character in media, Cousin Topsy from Mary Poppins Returns. It's very funny.
I thought it was weird because Topsy is also a character in Uncle Tom's Cabin, and that was what I kept thinking of.
Yes, it is.
Dear old, yes.
In the books,
Topsy.
There's a character named Topsy. And
Mischief Maker Topsy. That's what it was.
Thank you.
Topsy's a very sad character. I know we're referencing King and I, but yeah.
There's a character in the books called Topsy, and then Mary's cousin is Mr. Turvy, and his wife is Topsy. Or
I understood that was what they were, topsy turvy and upside down, and like I understood what they were going with it, but yeah.
And his house every second Wednesday. It's something about like every second Wednesday, his life turns upside down because his mom had wanted him to be born a girl, but he was born a boy. So his life was started out on the wrong foot or something like that. It was weird.
Dicey. Yeah. My favorite part about the whole thing was like from every second Wednesday from 9 to 12, my whole thing is upside down. And Adam was like, so they could have just come back at 1 and fix the bowl.
Yeah. When they leave, they literally walk out and then they hear the room turn back to normal. As soon as they walk out,
she was like,
"Oh, I guess it's over."
That wouldn't be fun, Adam.
But that wouldn't be fun, Adam. And you're so anti-fun.
How much money they would have saved on this sequence if they just got in when it was right side up.
It's just frustrating because all they do is they just, first of all, in the first one, I'm so annoyed. I'm getting more annoyed about this movie than I was.
This is a real Mr. Banks moment over here with Adam being like, why didn't they just do it in the logical way? There's a more straightforward way to fix this bowl.
Well, I mean, okay, the point of the whole thing was like, look at it from a different angle, right? Like
in the first one, In the first one, they're going to buy groceries. And then Andrew the dog comes up. Mary Poppins talks to Andrew the dog. There's also not enough of these little things that Mary can do in this movie. Everything's very big. So like there's not the like fun tape measurement moment where it's just like there's not anything to that moment, but it's like, oh, she's magical. Anyway, Andrew comes over and is like, your uncle is on the ceiling. He's laughing again. And so then they have to go visit the uncle. There's not like a plot thing that has anything to do other than the fact that they have to learn the joke. I once met a man with a wood leg named Smith, and that's how the president of the bank dies. Because canonically that does happen in the film. Okay, that's all. I just wish it was like
a movie
better.
Yeah. We all wish that.
I think we all wish
do we want to talk about...
I need a little more Lynn. Okay, we've been dancing around. We've been tripping a little around Lynn. And we've been avoiding Lynn. And I want to all in on Lynn.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. We'll let you start.
It was good.
I disagree.
I told Adam, I was like, Twinks had a lot of work. I mean... Twinkle
we
Little
always
Light,
support
fantastic.
work for Twinks for sure.
Absolutely, from our Newsies campaign.
Again, with the I was at this point offended by the beat for beat remake nature of
yes.
At least just make it a remake if this is what you're gonna do. And then to be like, what if they're lamplighters? Like, girl,
they're the same.
Stop
girl.
with this Dolly Parton nonsense of Story of the Lamplighter that's just who used to light the lamps and we got to see where they were.
My father created the first lantern.
Heavily into the Christmas on the Square mashup, or don't come at me with this lamplighter nonsense. So it was just I just couldn't believe they just were doing the same thing and acting like they did it.
Because it's exactly the same. Like the lamplighters is the same type of like. It's a job that keeps the city running, and you don't even know it. You know, like they are just kind of always keeping the city moving. That I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's
just
different.
Also make them chimney sweeps. People still had chimneys in 1930. Just also do that. If you want to do Step in Time again, just do Step in Time again. Make them chimney sweeps still. What did we
There's
get for
also-
the fact that they're lamplighters?
There's also like,
Well, they help them pack. They're also a moving company. They also help them move.
this song isn't nearly as good as
No.
Step in Time.
And I did want to, and you missed the like all of the chimney sweeps come out of the Banks family chimney, and it's like,
Right.
what is
fun, the
this?
fun.
Yeah,
And
there's no clashing.
That's the real problem with it, is that by making it this thing where it's almost a song you've heard before, is that it was actually good, but all I can think of is it's not Step in Time, because nothing ever will be. Nothing's
Right.
going to
Yeah.
be that good. And so you're just asking me to go, is this better than Step in Time? No, then I'm not interested. What a bad way to set up my expectations for your movie.
Yeah.
well, and also like, I'm thinking about Mary Poppins more. It's like
Adam's
they
experienced all of the emotions in this one
This
episode.
is
They
a,
have
a
this-
roller coaster.
during Step in Time, they have this like great time with these like
Steppin'.
with these like lower class working class people.
Mhm.
That's also what Mary is. Mary's technically working class,
Yeah.
and it goes back to the theme of don't feed the birds, which is like give to those who are less fortunate than yourself, which is like a weird thing to throw into this like children's film that has really nothing. It's about like a father needing to be a dad, but it does like remind
but
you
they're-
of this.
The dad in the first one, I mean, he works at a bank. And so he like has this sense of like you could argue that he maybe has a worldview of like the people who have money deserve to have money
Deserve
because
to
they've saved
have-
it up
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And so the idea of part of what Mary does is teach them about the fact that there are good people across class lines, and that part of her magic is supposed to be that she just knows all these people. Like what you were saying about missing the interstitials is like part, I feel like, of what's fun about the original Mary is like, sometimes you're not sure how much it's magic versus just like having built this vast network of interesting
Mhm.
people that she's gotten to know because she's just this like personable woman
Yeah.
who doesn't hold, doesn't stereotype people, doesn't hold it against them, what their class is or anything like that. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that I think in a way there is like a kind of consistent class theme in the original Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like this one, it goes out of its way to make Jane like a labor organizer. And like,
Yeah.
if the movie, this is an idea I just had, so we could have done this too. If the whole thing is like she needs to save the original Banks children, not the new Banks children, they're just like an addition. Then like, what if they had like worked Jane into this sequence because they were like like it wasn't
What if
lighters, right?
this rally that she was
Yes, they talk about.
planning and they
Right.
never show?
They never show. But like somehow this moment, Mary has a thing where like this is how like Jane rediscovers the magic and is like really excited. And so then Ben Wishaw, Michael is like the final one who's left needing to like
Yeah.
relearn something. Because like I do feel like Jane doesn't. Fine, Jane
doesn't
doesn't
have
have
any
anything
growth.
wrong
Yeah.
with
She
her,
doesn't
but
have
like she
anything
doesn't
to
have
do.
anything to do either. And it's like
Yeah.
she is half of the one unit situation.
They focus so much on Michael that she's almost like a support character for him to kind of like, well, remember, like you can do it. But I'm like, but that's the point of Mary Poppins. That's why she's there.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like she's just another kind of, I don't know.
It's so weird because the one criticism of like, not the one, but like one of the criticisms of the original Mary Poppins is like, where does the mom go? The mom just like disappears. She doesn't know what's
Yeah.
happening with her kids, blah, blah, blah. It's up to the dad to like learn how to be a dad, but like she's not doing anything either. But like, then you did the same thing with Jane, where you just like get rid of her through the movie and like she's not doing anything. Obviously, they're not her children. So like it's different in that regard. But like if the whole movie is set up to be like, I need to save Michael and Jane Banks, which is basically in the text, like what's wrong with Jane? It can't be just that she needs a date. You cannot tell me that is the problem Jane Banks has, is she's lonely.
The only problem that any woman has.
Yeah.
Because also, like, they don't even set up that it's that she's like, she doesn't talk about being like, I wish I had a man. It would have been wild if they did, and I don't know if I would have liked that choice.
Smoking
Yeah.
a cigarette, like, damn, I want a man.
Yeah.
It's just a real what's her name in Annie?
Oh,
Hannigan?
Miss
Miss Hannigan.
Hannigan.
It's just like
Yeah.
a total Miss Hannigan, like, I guess I'll never know the feeling
Yeah.
of running fingers through your hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So anyway,
Which sucks because I think this actress who plays Jane is really good.
I think she's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though she
All I
doesn't have a ton
could
to
think
do.
This actress, she was also on Newsroom and she was great in it, but the only character I associate her with is the bird-boned lady in 30 Rock. She's like a girlfriend of Alec Baldwin's, and the whole thing is that she's like so aristocratic that she has bird bones. She's like very brittle, and so that will always be what I first associate this
You
actress
see her?
with.
Yeah, she just
Ben Wishaw will always be Paddington.
Yeah.
And no one
that's
can
true.
ever take that away from him.
I think of him as, is it Keats in the movie Bright Star? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I was like, what words
Sure.
did you just say?
There's a movie called Bright Star that's made in 2009. Ben Whishaw is the
It's
star.
not the Steve
It's not the Steve
musical?
Martin
Yeah, John
bluegrass
Keats.
musical?
It's about a woman falling in love with John Keats. And he plays
Who's John
Keats.
Keats?
A poet, a very famous poet, Adam.
Poetry is not for me. It's the one art form that I fully like. I'm not going to learn
I'm
it.
not a
I'll
big fan
never
of
get
poetry
it.
either, but I know who Keats is. Yikes.
Yikes, Adam.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Unintelligent swine.
I only call you unintelligent swine during our friend time. That's
Yeah,
not for the
true.
podcast.
Not for the
Yeah.
pod. Yeah, I will say she does a really great job with Jane. I felt like her characterization was like, I'm watching Jane Banks grown up. Like this feels like a correct, like this is what that character would have been as an adult. Like she even sound like
the way she says Michael is very
the way she like talks is like, this is how Jane talked in the original, in the,
She did
as
a very
child.
good job of yeah.
And Jane was like my favorite because she was the more precocious there was a little bit more like standoffish, I felt like, between her and Michael as kids.
She Jane has the problem that like almost all girls do in like movies about
Yes,
children.
Adam explained the problem of girls.
I'm so interested in the end of the
His
sentence.
face was like, oh, yeah.
It's the same thing that like sitcom moms have, where they have to be the one like kind of keeping the glue together. Like Violet
Yeah.
Beauregard is the smart
Is the-
one
yeah.
in Series of Unfortunate Events. Like it's always the thing where like the daughter, especially the oldest daughter, is like mothering the
The
children.
more responsible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Liesel. Liesel famously does not give a shit about her.
Lisa
siblings.
is like, I want to get.
But she also has 5 sisters, so
That's true.
or 4 sisters. But
Yeah.
okay. Triple of Life Fantastic, is that it? BMX bikes? Do we want to say anything about weird bikes?
No, I don't.
Biking Pete, London, famously the most bikeable city of the century.
The weird thing about this movie that I think is like the one-to-one that they didn't do, and I was kind of surprised by, is they have no one-to-one for Chim Chimney Chim Chimmery, which is weird because that's the song that won the Oscar.
I think it's the Lin-Manuel does the like
Oh, his intro outro.
his
song?
intro outro. I think that's supposed to be it, but it's just not memorable. There's no
Yeah.
like,
The
repeating thing.
London Gray Sky
yeah.
song. Yeah, it's interesting because this is just Step in Time, but there's not the like, they don't go explore the rooftops of London like in the
Yeah,
original.
because
They
there's
go
no
like,
being lamplight. Like, oh, look, you never noticed how this lamp is about 6 feet off the ground. Like, what would they explore?
Yeah, they literally went to like an abandoned mansion where I guess all the lamplighters go and practice. Like it's a
BMX.
skate
Lighting
park,
lamp.
Yeah.
a bike park where they're just doing wheelies.
they literally bought 100 BMX bikes and then aged them. That was what I read, and I was
Wow.
like, wow, so they really are BMX bikes. Wow.
Can you imagine if this movie was made in the 90s? That BMX stuff would have been
Oh,
so cool.
yeah.
Extreme.
Extreme sports. Yeah.
It would have been full rollerblading, I feel like, too.
Oh,
And we know we have to
now
bring back the
this, this should have been a rollerblading musical.
Yeah,
There you go.
There
Yeah.
it is.
Learys, trip the lights and lead the way. Now when you're stuck in the mist, sure you can struggle and resist, or you can trip a little like fantastic with me. Now say you're lost in the crowd, well you can stamp and scream out loud, or you can trip a little like fantastic with me. And when the fog comes rolling in, just keep your feet upon the path. Mustn't mope and frown, or worse lie down, don't let it be your epitaph. So when life is getting scary, be your own illuminary, who can shine the light for all the world to see. As you trip a little like fantastic with me.
Then they save the day. Fine.
Save that day.
I have nothing to say about the Big Ben sequence.
Oh, I couldn't watch it when they were stacking those ladders. Couldn't handle it. Couldn't do it. Had to cover my eyes.
Do you have fear of heights?
Not like particularly, but that felt
But I
like
guess-
extremely precarious.
Because it's big fucking Ben. You're
Yeah,
like,
that
I
was
know
like
how
a
big
really
that thing is.
unsafe way to do this.
It's in the name.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I did, as I was watching it also, I was like, so like Jack's just gonna save that. Like that's what this movie is about, is like Jack is ultimately
will
the hero.
save,
So I was
yeah.
happy when Mary ended up like with the
She
umbrella
was like,
and like she
girl,
pulled up the clock face,
please.
because I was like, that can't be what you're trying to tell me. It's like the point is Jack's a hero. Like why would he be the center of this happening? So that was good that she saved it. I also felt like the flying the kite, like part of the sequence is that Michael and Jane try to fly the kite into the office because the pieces of the stock are on the kite.
Yeah.
And that felt a little like remember how they flew kites in the first one? And you're like, yeah, is this
I
like
do.
making a point about the kites that like, I feel like the lesson of the kites in the first one isn't like use kites for their utilitarian purposes.
Yeah.
Like, why would
the
this-
power of kites? Look at what
Right.
I guess again, it's like, it's a little bit of applying kid logic. So I guess
A
I
kite
get where
saves
they're
the
going
day,
with
yeah.
it, but it wasn't, it would have been better if it was like, I don't know, like maybe they get a bunch of friends and they fly in like 100 kites or so. It should have been something like a bigger scale.
But
But
then
also,
we're
like-
here. Did Mary control that wind so that it went in?
So
They
I
cut,
feel
they
like,
cut
wait,
to her.
They
right
cut to
Let's go
after
back
it
to the
goes
wind.
in.
Let's go back to the concept of wind in the canon of
The door?
Number one, not door.
Not the door.
No,
That's the
Adam,
first
sorry,
principle you have to know about wind is it's not a door. Second thing, I feel in the first Mary Poppins, the wind is an external power to Mary.
Yeah,
it is a
yeah.
more powerful force than Mary. Mary has to go where the wind calls her to.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it feels a little bit more like in this one, she
She's
is
God.
controlling, she is causing the wind.
has-
Right. So she's supposed to be Jesus, I think, in the first one. And then in this one, I think she
She's
is the
leveled
father.
up. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
the father.
So I do wish one thing I like about the original Mary Poppins is that it feels like she is not ultimately the most powerful force in the universe. Like even she has to answer to something higher.
Mhm.
And that
I
in
agree.
this one, it feels more like she can just do anything she wants.
Yeah.
And she's in control
Yeah.
of all of it.
I mean, I don't. Okay, couple things.
Wind is a door.
Wind is the door. How dare you? No.
Second, where is the Holy Spirit in this Trinity? Because I'm gonna make it about
The
Catholicism.
wind is the
Yes.
Holy
The
I
Spirit.
know
wind is the Holy
you
Spirit.
love Adam. You love when I make the podcast about Catholicism, famously.
Oh, only
Yeah,
thing I
we're
like.
we are the Catholic's number one podcast.
Yes. Yeah, famously.
That's why we're getting truth all the time. So those Catholics.
I was annoyed that they like sent the kite in through the window and then they
Still had
didn't.
to run in.
They still had to run in and just get the door
Right.
unlocked, which
Yeah.
which could have probably just happened anyway. And they wouldn't have had to wait. They're just like things where I'm like, but it doesn't solve anything. It's just like you did a thing to reference the first movie, but it doesn't. If it had a purpose and then it like actually did something, then I'd be like, oh, that's like a clever way to do that. But like you just had them fly the kite into the room to knock his stuff on his desk over, and then they still had to like get the door unlocked from the nice guy that you knew was going to end up unlocking the door anyway because they've set up that his character is the nice one. And then also I didn't like that Mary. First of all, I didn't like that there was a clock at all. I didn't like that it was like this external factor is like we're ticking down the time. The bomb is going to blow up in 5 seconds. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't like that. But I didn't like that Mary was the one who fixed the clock because she doesn't fix things. She like sets things into motion for the people to take care of themselves. I didn't like that it was her thing. Also, I didn't like that she was just flying the fucking umbrella out of nowhere in the middle of the day. There's something about the umbrella too that I always feels like as a kid, I was always like, oh, the umbrella is the only way she can travel to and from. It's just like she has to keep the umbrella in case she has to leave. But it's not like she
Yeah.
can just be like, oh, I have to go grab some eggs
grab some eggs.
down
Yeah,
at the
let me
Bloop.
get on my
Right.
umbrella.
I
Yeah.
didn't like that it was like, oh, it's just like a power she has. Like,
Adam
Yeah.
is fully actually for like
I
Mary
hate
Poppins
myself. I
like
sound
No,
crazy.
you know what? No, I was saying that I liked that Mary fixed it, but you're right. I think it would have been more fitting if it was like the
It did
lamplighters,
happen. Yeah.
or like the lamplighters are like doing this whole thing. They're trying to get to the clock face. They can't do it. And then Mary was like, I noticed that door over there is open. And then the kids could go in and do like
Yeah.
that would have been
Yes.
better for
Yes.
the kids to actually be the ones to ultimately save. Yeah.
yes.
Because I did like the payoff that like the Admiral ends up, kind of completing like, oh, Big Ben is now correct.
I did like
I like that payoff a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like you have turned me around, Adam. Mary does not fix things.
No,
she's-
she canonically she doesn't fix. She solves, but she doesn't fix.
Oh,
Is that the same? That's the synonym.
Solving is not fixing, as a door is not the wind.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
Put that
yes.
on a shirt.
Wow.
Her first merch.
And then the balloon sequence.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
This
li-
is, I will
Not
say
kites.
this is my
it's not
favorite
kites.
song.
It's not
in the
kites.
movie.
This is your favorite song?
Mhm.
Wow. It had
'Cause
so
it-
completely lost me by this point.
It is the. I mean, it is.
I
it
do
is
like
the
the-
most hopeful song
Yeah.
in the film. I there is something about like the. I don't like that they end with like a magical sequence while Mary's leaving because what I believe the whole thing in the first one is that there's not magic and so they're fine without her because that's like it's the way to show that they're fine without her. But also like it's not Mary's magic.
It's Michael's magic.
No.
Oh.
It's the balloon lady's magic, which is why it was probably supposed to be Julie Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I liked it in the sense of like it was a way to visually show that Michael has gotten his sense of childhood play and joy back again. I do agree that it was more compelling when they did it in the first movie with the kite. I mean, yeah, he probably was drunk, but like him flying a kite again with his family. There was something about like, we're doing this together again.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool to see the whole town do it, like the whole street. I like that it was like, these are people that meant a lot to this family.
There were a lot of people that I felt like they should have had them shoot a sequence on a balloon. Like they should have had Meryl do a little balloon bit. Like they should have had all the characters. If they're going to go out of their way to be like, everybody got a balloon in the movie, then like just put everybody in the balloon. But I didn't like that William got like an air balloon. Like first of all, I didn't like that he was a villain, so whatever. But I also didn't like that like he doesn't even get to join in on the fun because in the first one, oh my God, I hate that I keep doing this. In the first one, the president of the bank, first of all, his dad has died, which is a wild thing in the first movie that no one remembers. But the Dick Van Dyke's character, the old man at the bank, does die from laughing. Okay, so then his son becomes the head of the bank, which is who Dick Van Dyke is playing in this one. In the first one, he is also at the park flying a kite. He's also having fun on his day off. You realize that like, while he was a hard ass, he's known all along the joy of like having work-life balance. Wow, 1964 is something that no one had ever said before. So I like that goes back to the whole thing that like he's not a villain. He just like it was like a bad situation at the bank and now it's solved and it's fine. And like he does, Mr. Banks in the first one does get his job back. They do like I think they make him a partner actually, but in this one, like they've saved the house. That's also fine. I have no problem with that. Fine. Of course they should save the house. Doesn't bring their mom back, but it's fine. I just was like, why are we? Don't even include William if you're gonna have this like alleged comedy bit of like he picks the wrong balloon and he has nowhere to go.
He truly was the main villain because he, there's nothing redeemable about him.
And he was the wolf.
Yeah,
because they let the other guys have balloons.
Yeah.
The two broke the whoever they are. Bank associates.
Guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, what is this about other than it ended with kites, the first one? Like, if this movie somehow existed in a world where there wasn't a first Mary Poppins, I guess maybe they would do, and then we all get balloons because we have joy again. But
I just wish there were so many things that they threw at us of like plot that like this culmination of Michael and their family like experiencing joy again was like, it just felt disconnected to what we just saw resolved, like I wish, yeah.
It would have been nice if it was something at the house because that was kind of
get
the
it
plot.
Back. Yeah.
Maybe they have like a party in their house,
Yeah.
Yeah. Angela Lansbury does great in this little role. I think it's fun for her. Good job.
It's great to see her. Obviously, we miss her. Yeah.
Very sad.
I've set sail! Chart a course, Mr. Binnacle! That I will, sir! If your gaze up the spout, well, there isn't a doubt. There's nowhere to go but up. And if you don't believe, just hang on to my sleeve, for there's nowhere to go but up. As you fly over town, it gets harder to frown, and we'll all lift our hearts if we never look down. Let the past take a bow, the forever is now. And there's nowhere to go but up, up. There's nowhere to go but up.
RJ, Molly, anything else before we move on?
Ellen was great.
Julie Walters is great as Ellen.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've
would
now
say it
watched
either just
3
made this a
Julie
remake.
Walters musicals.
Yeah. I wish they'd either just made it as a straight up remake or that they had done something more different.
I honestly, they would have, if they had made it now, I think they would have. Made it as a remake. In a post West Side Story world, I think they would have done it as a remake. But there hadn't been a movie made where it was like, this is like a classic piece of cinema that you could never remake. Nobody had done that yet, really. Or done it well. I should
Well,
say.
that's all they do now. I feel like West Side Story wouldn't be the thing that turns it for Disney, right?
Right. No. But if all of the ones that they've done they're animated to live action. Like they're remaking them because they're doing it in a different
format.
Media
Okay.
form.
form. Yeah. Whereas like this is, they would just
Except for
redo
Lion
it.
King, it's not actually live action, but yes.
Yeah,
My
I agree.
controversial take, apparently.
No, it's not controversial. It's very annoying that whatever. Critics. So this is an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is certified fresh. I read 6 or 7 reviews. I try to read a bunch of reviews. I don't always use the ones I read, but usually because I'm trying to find like good quotes to actually talk about. But
Yeah.
A lot of them had a similar sentiment of like, it's so nice to get a movie this nostalgic that really makes us feel like everything's okay in 2018. And I was like, what were we going through in I don't even remember anymore. Anything pre-pandemic.
The only thing I could think of was like midterms, midterms.
We were still on the come down from 2016.
Yeah,
Trump was still president.
Yeah.
What were the events of 2018? Hold on.
Because Weinstein was 2017. So that was why I was wondering if it was like, oh, is this a thing? But it's obviously still aftermath, but it wasn't really that. I don't know. It just was like everyone was like 2018 has been truly horrible. So it's nice that this movie really lets us feel okay. And I was like, oh God, none of you people are ready for 2020. And we weren't.
Democrats won back the midterms.
Mhm.
This is very like global politics, like humanitarian crisis sees Me Too movement goes global. Jamal Khashoggi, the Saudi dissident.
Mm-hmm.
We left the Iran nuclear deal.
Oh, that's what it was for sure. Definitely a nuclear deal.
I think it was just like a feeling of generally like Trump is chipping away at our credibility on the world stage. Kind of a feel more so than actual, like, here was the big event. We got the Golden State Killer.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Was this when his staff was like, just like, it was a different cast of characters every day? Or did that come closer to the end of his term? I don't remember.
That was
I think it
really
was, like,
early
beginning,
on.
right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of and then kind of it calmed down a little bit.
Yeah.
The royal wedding happened. Meghan Markle and Harry.
Yeah.
It's always so shocking to me how quickly all of those things transpired, of like the wedding and then the leaving and all of that stuff. The Winter Olympics.
Pyeongchang.
Child immigrants being separated from their parents. That was 2018.
Cool. Great. Amazing.
Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing.
That was definitely the end of 2018.
I think it might be that.
Yeah. This Mary Poppins Returns is directly in conversation with the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll be the separate podcast where we just talk about those parallels.
So I just thought it was interesting because a lot of them referenced it. None of the quotes that I have, I think, reference them, but it was like a through line that I saw in like multiple. And I was like, oh, the other thing that they talk about, and this might be in here, but like, is that this movie is like unabashedly like wholesome. Like they were like, even most kids movies now aren't this saccharine. Whereas like this one really leans into, it's like a very sweet film. Like it's not scared to be it, and probably for the better that it doesn't try to do anything like cynical with it. But
I guess, I will say, I feel like now positive media is a big thing. And that was like a response to the Trump era in general. And maybe this was a kickoff event of that feeling of like positive media. Yeah.
Yeah. From Vox, Alyssa Wilkinson says, Marshall has been trying to construct an award season narrative around the film that deems it the movie we need right now. Oh, so I did include it. By which she seems to mean that it's a bit of escapist fun that takes us away from the anxious age we live in. But if that was the effect he hoped to achieve, a less melancholy plot probably would have been more successful and made the cheerful ending feel less like an encouragement, especially in the midst of national austerity and political upheaval, 2 things the movie also contains: to engage in willful denial and just assume that everything will turn out all right in the end. These kind of misfires keep Mary Poppins Returns from truly fulfilling its potential. It's a nice-looking, entertaining movie and a fine way to spend a few hours with your family over the holidays, but I found myself wishing that an extra spoonful of sugar and a pinch of magic had been sprinkled in too. Great.
I'm a little confused about what this person is asking for. Are they critiquing the denial of it, or they want it to be more saccharine?
Yes, and.
Okay.
Owen Gleiberman from Variety writes, at 2 hours and 10 minutes, Mary Poppins Returns is a bit long, yet just when you think it's flagging, which for me was during the Triple Little Light Fantastic number. Sorry, but I never loved Step in Time that much either.
No, I'm not interested in this person's opinion. No, you can just stop there. That's fine. We don't care what Gleiberman has to say. It's irrelevant to the rest of humanity.
Marshall pulls it all together with a sensational sequence in which Jack and his fellow Learys scale Big Ben to slow down the clock by 5 minutes. When Miranda's Jack is hovering over the city and Mary comes to the rescue via her umbrella, the entire movie soars. And that's before Dick Van Dyke shows up for a cameo sharp enough to remind you of the life force he was in Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins Returns never stops looking back. That's the film's essential quality. Its majestic cornball MO. Yet in recreating with so much meticulous love the sensory and emotional contact high of Mary Poppins, the movie does something that points forward instead of back. It says, what if we could actually feel this way now? Maybe we could come out on the other side.
Interesting.
And then Richard Lawson.
I just want to say, I feel like I didn't really talk about Dick Van Dyke's cameo. It's like a perfect nostalgic cameo. It's so good the way that they work him in. Yeah.
Yes. And he looks so good at 93.
Yeah.
They actually had to put old age makeup on him
Yes.
to make him look older. Isn't that
That's amazing.
wild? And then Richard Lawson from Vanity Fair says, by the film's joyful and buoyant finale and almost maniacally cheery riot of balloons in powder blue sky, I had a tear in my eye, reluctantly moved by the film's aggressive assertion of niceness and hope. It's all a bit blinkered maybe, but why not let the kids figure that out later? The air will go out of the balloon eventually. The magic of Mary Poppins will leave us. For a moment, though, a lovely little drift toward better days proves perfectly welcome.
It's just so interesting. Yeah, I just feel like we're in such a different time that like I was not like, oh, a reprieve to the soul of this movie. I haven't seen something so positive and good.
It's not like things are going great.
No, it's not. I mean, I guess we're in kind of a good era. Like, obviously, there's still a lot of crazy things happening politically, but like the fact that we're on the other side of the pandemic, right? So I think things are kind of hopeful in a lot of ways for us because of that. And I think also that we've had maybe more kind media that also has more substance to it. Makes me feel like we were really feeling our feelings that we needed just like this very simple thing to make us feel better in 2018.
Yeah, like no surprises. Just I know exactly where it's going.
Because I don't think you guys have watched Ted Lasso, right?
No.
Ted Lasso to me is like peak kind media. Yeah, I know. I Exceeded Bridgerton and Ted Lasso. I'll never convince you. But I feel like Ted Lasso is like such kind media. The main character is so like just like continuously optimistic, but there is also a lot of substance to what the characters go through on the show. And so I feel like I've been shown a way to do something that's so uplifting, but in a much more substantial way now that I just don't have a reaction of like, wow, I can't believe they did this really fun thing.
And I would say like my critique of the film obviously is not the tone of the film. Like I think the tone almost is like perfectly placed in conversation with the original film. I would say, which I think is what most of these critics are responding to, is like the tone is perfectly suited to what is needed. I just think like, I don't know if it should be like a beat for beat remake, but I would say we were still in the early era of Disney remakes when this movie came out. Yeah. Whereas like now it's like we get them once every 3 months. So
yeah.
On Letterboxd, it has a 3 out of 5 stars. Lucy gave it 1.5 stars. And she said Mary Poppins floated down with her umbrella at Stonewall and said, here's a brick, have fun. Great. Amazing.
Good comment.
And that's canon. That's queer canon. That is what happened.
That's what happened. Friend of Mary.
Judy Garland died, and so she descended.
Yeah.
And gave the brick.
Chris Fail gave it 3.5 stars and said, starring Meryl Streep as Katya Zamolchkova.
Would have played in that role. We know Disney would never, but would have played.
Incredible comment. That is so
funny. I follow Chris Fail on Letterboxd.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Patrick Willems gave it 3 stars and said 93-year-old Dick Van Dyke hopping on a desk and dancing is as awe-inspiring as any stunt in Mission Impossible Fallout.
Truly.
Which is very true. I remember looking at it and being like, I wonder if that's him. And then I saw that it was, and I was like, oh my God. For what? They had like 4 variations of that dance move, and he was like, I am determined to do the hardest version to show how spry I am.
Yeah.
Because remember, he was at Disneyland for I think it was one of the anniversaries, recent anniversaries, and he was like was like dancing. He like did Step in Time a little bit of Step in Time.
It was like the 55th anniversary or something like that.
Yeah.
Of Mary Poppins, I think.
So he's still,
Which
you
would have
know,
been in 2019, I believe.
that's the secret. Be unproblematic, I guess. Like be an unproblematic fave to a whole country, to a whole nation.
Now that you say that tomorrow.
No, something's gonna happen.
Between
No,
this
no,
and
no,
when
no,
the
no.
episode comes out, it'll be like Dick Van Dyke
Has been fracking.
spews racist Twitter thread.
Yeah.
No, he won't do that to us. If anything, it'll be like between now and then. It's gonna be like,
No, don't even bring it into
Don't
existence. No.
even.
it's not gonna happen. It's gonna live forever.
Nor.
RJ, do you have one?
I do. I mean, yes, Emily Blunt was truly great.
Are you taking Emily?
I won't take Emily. I think I will take Emily Mortimer. I think that's her name, right?
Mhm.
Who plays Jane. I even though she is given dust to do in this movie,
Mhm.
I really do think that she felt the most. I am watching Jane Banks as an adult go through it. I think like with Michael, I
Go
agree.
through what?
I wish there was a little bit more of the joy of the young Michael that we saw, maybe even a little bit in parts to be like, oh, that he is there. We just need to kind of like get it back out.
Mm.
And he kind of does when he draws that little, like pound note on a piece of receipt paper or whatever.
Yeah, 10-pound note. Yeah.
But I wish there was a little bit more. With Jane, I felt like, this is Jane as this age.
Mm.
That I really liked. And I think her voice work was really good.
Yeah.
She really sounded like her.
Maybe I'm going to steal Adam's. We'll see. But I thought of a good one, which is I'm going to give it to those animators that they pulled out of retirement to make the findable sequence. Because I was saying, I wish the art style was a little more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the animation was very dynamic and lively. And I think that will be probably the part that I most remember about this movie in like a year's time.
I have an honorable mention beforehand because I thought somebody was going to say it. So I think Emily Blunt is my honorable mention. We already have a full podcast episode about her in the D-Pod, so you can go back and listen to that.
She's gotten the accolades. She's nominated.
Obviously.
Like she
is. I think it is such a. She has to be Mary Poppins, a character that everyone thinks they know because of a very iconic performance by a celebrated.
It's the funny girl.
Yes. But she has to make it her own, and it has to fit within this film
world,
and the way that this film has written this character. And I think she is her own Mary while still being like referencing things from the original, but it really does feel like this is her performance of Mary. And it's a very good performance. I think this is an achievement because I cannot imagine that this was like easy to do.
Molly, are you a Doctor Who person?
A little bit.
Did you ever come across any of the like Mary Poppins as a doctor? Like that kind of theory?
Tumblr. Have you ever been on Tumblr?
AK, have you ever been on Tumblr?
I was on Tumblr back
I
in
do think
2014.
there's something about it of like you could believe like, okay, she's a different form right now, but like you see her and it's like, oh, that's Mary Poppins. Obviously, that maybe that's part of the lore.
Emily Blunt would be a great Doctor Who.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
She'd be incredible.
Pay up, BBC.
I'm picking Ben Whishaw because I really do think this is a really terrific performance in a role that he gives a lot of weight and meaning to, and it doesn't feel overwrought, but it does feel like when there's that moment after he yells at the kids where he breaks down and says like he's having such a hard time, and you really can feel that this man is like not in a good place and he's been trying to cover it all up. And I think it's very raw and it's very vulnerable. And I actually really like that conversation song at the beginning, even though I think it's like a really dark way to start the movie. Yeah. He just like, you get a lot from him, even though he doesn't have a ton of screen time in this movie. He has a lot of screen time, but like not as much as like you would think for how much emotional work he has to do in this film. So
yeah,
it's a very good performance. Molly, what's your closer?
As I've never done before, I haven't written a closer down, but I did think of one during the course of the podcast because we talked about how it's a shame that Disney just keeps remaking all of their already amazing movies. So my question is, I'm going to say sequel. What lesser appreciated Disney movie would you like them to make a sequel that you think they could actually surpass the original movie through making something else in the same universe, but they don't have to remake that movie?
Are we sticking strictly animated or just anything?
Any Disney.
And it's a sequel?
Sequel specifically.
That they're going to make a sequel of it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Molly, since you asked the
I was going to say Black Cauldron because I watched Black Cauldron one time when I was like 9 and I liked it. And so it remains in my memory as an actually pretty good movie that people underappreciate. And I think that the like dark, gritty Middle Ages setting with magic is definitely, you could make something very cool with that sort of general setup. And so I would like to see a Black Cauldron sequel.
Animated or live action?
I would for animated. Yeah, I think animated. I think that bringing a specific art style is going to be important to appreciating the setting of the movie. Can you believe that of these 3 people, I'm the one who had the quickest pull of a lesser appreciated Disney movie?
Because I know more Disney movies.
Yeah, you've got just too many things to go through in your file folders.
I do. There are many underappreciated Disney films.
Whatever. Uneducated swine. What was it?
Yes, uneducated swine. Unintelligent swine.
Unintelligent swine. That was it.
It's frustrating because they did a remake of this.
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna pick it because I think a sequel would be good too. Pete's Dragon is a film that's not very good. It's very good in the fact that it's like that kind of 70s cheese family movie bad. But I actually think, let me look at our calendar really quick because
Yeah, we are doing it. The original Pete's Dragon, October 15th.
Okay, yeah, Pete's Dragon's on the list. So Pete's Dragon is the one I'm picking as a sequel of something that would be. I think you could easily make it better.
The remake was,
but you have to But here's the thing: they have to make Elliot the Dragon 2D animated. It has to be 2D. I do not want a CGI. Dragon.
You're the executive producer. You're not funding this. You're Mark Platt. Mark Platt.
I will give this movie $1 billion to make it if they make it with a 2D fucking dragon that looks like the dragon from the original.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want him to look goofy ass, which is how he looks in the first one. He looks goofy. That's my pick.
Oh, go, babes. This is tough. Because all of the movies that come to mind technically do have sequels. Like back when Disney was doing it's like straight to video, home video.
Oh, we
sequels.
can ignore those.
We can ignore those. Those are not good anyway.
Non-theatrical releases are irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
Okay. If that's the case, then
should we all do British accents because we want to do an homage to the all-American version of this movie that almost happened according to IMDb?
While RJ's thinking, I thought of something that I wanted to say earlier that I'd forgotten about. I wish this movie had looked like it was shot indoors more. Like the way that Mary Poppins looks like it's filmed on a soundstage because it was. And I think some of it is like Cherry Tree Lane is clearly like on a soundstage, but like I just wanted more of that because I wanted it to be a little more in conversation with the first film.
Yeah, and we're famously fans of soundstages on this podcast. So
you love a soundstage.
Yeah, they could have done more with the technology feeling nostalgic too. I think would have also helped. Yeah.
Shoot it in CinemaScope. Why not?
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Whatever that means. I'm
gonna go weird. I'm gonna go an actual sequel to the Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis Freaky Friday. I would because I know that they've like it's breathed new life in a musical version. Like I think there's like I think it's a pro shot of like this just same story but in a musical. And I also know there was an original. It's technically a remake of back in the day, right? Of Jodie Foster in Freaky Friday, right?
Yeah, the original. Yeah.
I would like a sequel where they take out the problematic Asian stereotype, the fortune cookie. Maybe remove that.
Maybe.
I would love to see because I think we've seen Jamie Lee Curtis really succeed in like the Halloween series of like.
That's where we saw her succeed.
No, not the Oscar.
Not the Oscar-winning performance.
No, but in a way of like the same character appearing as different like generations and ages, like continuing
generational trauma.
Yes, generational trauma, family trauma.
You struggle with that phrase, girl.
Trauma.
Generational trauma.
That's how she pronounces it. She says trauma.
There's a whole compilation.
There's a whole clip of her doing trauma.
Generation
gotcha.
in like press junkets.
I think it would be fun to kind of apply the same Halloween logic, but in Freaky Friday, where where it's like she is a grandma, all of a sudden now has to like Freaky Friday with her granddaughter. Maybe, like Lindsay Lohan's daughter. And there's something there of like she has to relearn the lesson of like seeing each other eye to eye or whatever, or like seeing each other's worlds. So I think it could be fun, like in a context now, like what's the fun generational, like it could, what's the fun generational thing that they have to go through with like a kid now, you know? Could be fun. Forcing Jamie Lee Curtis to like act Gen Z, Gen A.
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm wondering about like, does it work better or worse if it's a grandchild instead of a child? I mean, you generally have fewer conflicts with grandparents because you don't see them as much and they're not as
That's
right,
true.
like parents and kids, but also, I don't know. I guess we just have a cultural.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Good point.
Good point.
There's like a cultural expectation that like you don't correct your grandparents. Like they might kind of not get it, but you just kind of say like, that's fine. They're on their way out. Like,
they're, Would it be a sequel if it like applied to a different family, or is that just a remake?
Yeah, we could do that.
Because I think you could do Freaky Friday with like a new family dynamic.
What if she just switches bodies with like a coworker or something? It's just like not even
like it's not even family. It's just like oops, the barista down the street.
Yeah, she ran into someone on the bus and now they have to switch lives. Just like a prince and a pauper kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it was never about the fortune. It's that there's a family curse in the family.
She's just highly susceptible to switching bodies. Yeah.
I'm in. I mean,
or just bring back Lohan and just it's like they have to continue to learn from each other.
It's Lohan
because now they're in different life phases, and I'm having fun, Adam.
Now she's
can I have fun, Mr. Banks? Mr. Banks, can I have some fun, please?
You can have fun. I'm just saying she pronounces her last name Lohan.
Now it's now that she's a mom, you know, having to go through it, but then it's like, I don't want to be the mom that I had or whatever. Like, and then it's like forcing her to like,
I guess the logical thing would be Lindsay Lohan switches places with her daughter, but we have to have Jamie Lee Curtis back. I mean,
I know
it's
that's
unacceptable.
The thing.
Yeah.
She's got it because she won an Oscar for being weird.
Yeah.
She loves her weird roles. So I want her to do
maybe
one more.
She's become a full-on wizard and she did the body swap, and a lot of it is them convincing Jamie Lee Curtis to let them go back in the right bodies.
She has fully become Ursula, like Sea Witch, making people switch bodies, and Lindsay Lohan has to come back and stop her mother from doing this.
She's become a villain.
She's
with
become
switching
so
bodies,
bored
and it's just a hero's journey of Lindsay.
Isn't that what we want? Lohan.
I think it's the stepdad, the guy she marries at the end of the movie, and the son and the brother.
Maybe not immediately. Maybe like later.
Men growing.
Men.
So isn't that 17 again? That Zac Efron movie.
But it wasn't. But he goes back in time.
Oh, he just goes back. It's big.
He gets his body, like he's 17 body back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
Wow.
Fund us. Well,
happy birthday again, America.
Happy birthday.
There's so many.
The bombs are bursting up in the air here in Chicago.
Is it really? Oh, I can't hear it at all.
And Friedrich is just
good. Yeah, you can't really. I can just hear this thing.
No, Friedrich is fine. He's literally just.
Okay.
He's an
Epcot baby. Yeah, he had fireworks every night.
Heard him every night.
Stepping time. Stepping time.
Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
Natalie Wood's got the entertainment that really entertains. This is the big bouncy one about the darling of the runways who made herself a reputation, who became the toast of international society. The rollicking road to fame of the girl who got away with it. The fabulous Gypsy Rose Lee. Gypsy, starring Rosalind Russell, Natalie Wood, Carl Malden, and the wildest bunch of characters in or out of show business. Jolly Uncle Jocko, a top banana on the skids. Kringeline, the indignant. Carolyn, the dancing cow. The high mogul with low intentions. The Hollywood blondes. And the most mama any girl ever had.
This time I'm gonna make you a star, baby.
You'll be swell. You'll be great. Gonna have the whole world on a plate. Starting here, starting now. Honey, everything's coming up roses.
And one more disparaging remark about my ballet will find his bugle right in your knee!
Louise, that's it over here. Give me your hand. Now follow me. That's it, Louise. Now do it faster. That's it. Charleston front. Do it again. Do it again. Turn. Louise.
Honestly, the way you behave with those girls. Rose.
We need new silverware for when we set up housekeeping on Riverside Drive.
I don't get you. You're so high and mighty with a suite at the Astor, and you're still stealing the cutlery.
You gotta grasp every opportunity. Then it serves them right for overcharging.
Look where I'm going. I'm not staying in burlesque. I'm moving. Maybe up, maybe down. But wherever it is, I'm enjoying it. I'm having the time of my life. Because for the first time, it is my life. And I love it. I love every second of it. And I'll be damned if you're gonna take it away from me. Let me entertain you. We'll have a real good time, yes, sir. We'll have a real good time.
Discovering voices